This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. The home of, you know, there isn't very much news to talk about. What will we do for the next 3 hours? Yeah, it never seems to be like that, does it? Anyway, I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and you're listening on either DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connection device. And by the way, we're not one of the shows, we're not one of the stations that crows about this stuff, but they have this thing called radars. They do latest listening figures. We are up and up and up and up every single quarter at the moment, since, you know, there was some moment in a TV studio, and we are doing better than ever before, and I cannot thank you enough for your loyalty, whether you were listening way back when, 10 years ago now, when we launched in 2016, or your recent joiner, or any time in between. We so appreciate you taking the time to listen. We appreciate your company, appreciate your calls, your texts, and, you know, your criticism and your praise. So thank you very, very much indeed for being part of the Talk team. It's always, always something that we appreciate. Right now, let me tell you what we will be doing on the show today, because there may be the small matter of that leadership contest for the Labour Party, and indeed being Prime Minister, that we've been yapping on about all week. Well, things went a bit quiet on that front yesterday, when, of course, we had the King's speech. Understandable, but let's face it, today is the day when Wes Streeting has to put up or shut up. Otherwise, he's going to be a busted flush. And if he doesn't go now and things are delayed, will other candidates, one Mr Andy Burnham of Manchester, perhaps get a better look in? Well, also other candidates as well. We are expecting not only Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, to basically say, I'm going to challenge the Prime Minister. We're told he does have the 80 other MPs who will name him personally as the man they want to take over. We've also got Angela Rayner, who is now apparently free to take part in any race, because she says that she has been cleared of any wrongdoing by HMRC after that investigation into her tax affairs when she failed to pay £40,000 of stamp duty that she was due to pay. She says she's been cleared. We'll talk about that. I'd love to see the paperwork from HMRC, but there we are. Convenient timing as well, I think a lot of us might ask. Ed Miliband is also reportedly willing to throw his hat in the ring, as is Defence Minister Al Khan's, former head of the SBS. I mean, a lot of people saying that he has, despite not being in the cabinet, rather more qualifications than a bunch of other people who've worked in the public sector. But there we are. I want to hear your thoughts on all of that, particularly Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting, the two names that we, I think, strongly expect will today announce their plans to run for the leadership. Who would be worse for Britain? That's my question. Who would be worse? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000 is a number to get in touch. If you want to text the word talk and your message to 87222, I'd love to hear from you. You can send a message on X at talkTV. Calls to charge at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. It is all going off. We're also going to talk about tax investigations. donation investigations, I apologise, for Nigel Farage of Reform, and Labour's plan to ban new oil and gas fields in Britain, making it hard for any future government to reopen the North Sea. We are in properly mad territory on that front, but we have been for quite some time, have we not? Well, I can't wait to hear your thoughts, but I also can't wait to hear the thoughts of political editor of The Critic, Henry Hill, who joins us now. Very good morning to you. Congratulations on the new job, by the way. Last time you were on, you were heading to that job. We weren't able to make it public, so that's great news. You've been a political watcher for a very long time. You hang out with these sorts over in Westminster. What do you think the likelihood is that we're going to hear from Wes Streeting today on his challenge?
I mean, it's not 100% because the whole thing is playing out incredibly oddly.
Isn't it?
The one thing you can say for the Tory regicide machine is that it does kill leaders when you turn it on.
Sufficient.
It does it too well, and they turned it on too often, maybe. But like, it does at least work. Whereas, I mean, it's just strange that you've got this resignation, and he just announced it 2 days in advance. It's like, why not do it anyway? He might bottle it. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. This happens in politics, that somebody just loses their nerve. I think if he loses his nerve today, that's it, right? He will have sent a clear signal. I think
there's no, at this point.
Yeah.
You've got to put up or shut up
if
today.
If he realises this, then he will go. And then he will trigger a contest, and all of the other people who have been basically more or less telling the press that they all want a contest, but none of them want to trigger a contest.
Yes, that's the key.
Then they will suddenly be in the competition as well. So this could be
dragged, unwilling.
I know, but
just want to do their best for the country.
Found with two
Henry,
priests.
this is about the country.
Exactly, of course.
This is about the voters.
Unlike when the Tories did it, there was a wonderful. Was it Barry Gardiner yesterday saying like, no, the difference is that we're doing this for the good of the country. Whereas when the Tories did leadership contests, it was about the party. It's like, oh, come on, Barry.
Exactly. Let's face it, it is about both. We're expecting that resignation from Wes Streeting after that 16-minute meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister ahead of PMQs, the state opening of Parliament. Lots of talk that if Angela Rayner or anyone else wasn't available, Andy Burnham, that Ed Miliband would throw himself into the fray. It's an interesting talk to say about Al Khan's, this defence minister. A lot of people rate, again, he's not been a cabinet minister. There's an element where, OK, he's been tried and tested on the battlefield. Absolutely. Has he been tried and tested politically? Probably not, although he'll probably do an damn sight better than a lot of the other runners and riders in the real world. But let's talk about Angela Rayner. She was Deputy Prime Minister until last year. She had to step aside because a parliamentary standards investigation found that, her tax arrangements were not reasonable. This is all over her buying a flat for herself in Brighton, which we all sort of found out about sort of by accident. And it was an 800 grand property, and it was due higher stamp duty than the stamp duty she paid. She only paid 30,000. It was actually due 70,000 because she was buying it as a second home. And it's all very confused for all of us who are not tax specialists, and clearly for Angie Rayner, who's also not a tax specialist. And I sympathise for her with that. But she was not only Deputy Prime Minister, she was also Housing Secretary, who brought in the rule that if you were buying a second home, you had to pay extra stamp duty. Yeah, she was literally in part of that. And the whole issue here is that her view was that she was buying this flat, and it wasn't her second home because the other home that she owned was actually part of a trust for her son, who is disabled after winning and has been funded basically by a payout from the NHS, which we also found out about at that time, and that it was a mistake that she has now paid that due extra £40,000. But in an interview today with ITV and an interview with The Guardian as well, she has said that she has been cleared by HMRC. Let's have a little listen to what she said when she was talking about what happened with HMRC in an interview with ITV News' Paul Brand.
Can you just tell me what the decision was from HMRC as you understand it?
Well, I welcome HMRC's conclusion and they've said that there wasn't any wrongdoing and that I didn't try to avoid paying tax or I wasn't careless in the way in which I conducted myself. At the time when I was in government and this came to my attention that there could have been tax owed, I was really shocked about that because I'd taken advice and I've never wanted to avoid paying my tax. And for me, that was the most distressing thing, is that people felt that I was tax dodging or trying to set up trusts to avoid tax or being careless by not taking the appropriate advice, and HMRC have concluded that isn't the case.
Did that hurt when that was being bandied around, that you might have done it on purpose?
He did, and it hurt me because I had to then talk about my son and his personal circumstances, which I think, you know, it's not fair on him. He's a young man now, and, you know, it's his history that is not really for me to band around the airwaves. But equally, I didn't want people to think that the person who they know me as, the person who went into politics for fight for people, suddenly dropped all her values and was just on the take.
Well, I mean, it's all very distressing for Angie Ranger. I wonder how much more distressing, Henry Hill, it would have been for anyone else who'd failed to pay their full stamp duty. Complicated tax arrangements. Well, I don't hear her campaigning for tax reform. If the woman in charge of the department that's instigating that tax doesn't understand it, that's something. But she said some things in there that's not true. She took advice. She took advice from conveyancing solicitors who expressly stated to her, and we know this from the investigation, that she should take specialist tax advice regarding the fact that she had a share in this trust, and therefore whether or not would this new purchase in Brighton, would it count as a second home or her primary home, and therefore be subject to more stamp duty. She chose not to get that advice, didn't get it until after an investigation was instigated and the story became public. And she's saying that she has not been found to have deliberately avoided her tax and not even been careless. So as far as we can tell, she's been cleared. That means she hasn't had to pay a fine. One assumes she's had to pay interest at least, but I don't understand how she could not have been deliberate in not paying, or at the very least deliberately careless, and you can still have to pay surcharges of up to 30% for that. By the fact that she was told to get specialist advice, was in a position to do so. She wasn't some innocent, I'm 18-year-old, I don't know what I'm doing. She was a cabinet minister. She chose not to do that, and then she didn't pay the right tax. Do you think anyone else would get cleared by HMRC in the same circumstances?
Oh, I mean, there might be a few other Labour ministers they like, I suppose. It is.
Does this smell to you?
Normally, I'm very wary. You know, it's very easy for me as a journalist to sort of say, well, this is obviously, you know, no smoke without fire, which is a phrase I hate. This has been properly investigated by HMRC, as far as we know, and she has been found. I am interested, and I would be interested if we could if it was possible to pry into the details, why receiving formal written advice from your lawyers to seek appropriate legal advice from the relevant lawyers is not, ignoring that advice is not considered to be recklessness. Like, why do we have the category of reckless if ignoring written legal advice from your lawyers doesn't qualify as reckless? That, I think, is...
careless, I think.
Careless. And I think that is an interesting question. And politically, I think the other thing that really damaged Angela Rayner about this, and that maybe her supporters might forget, is that it wasn't the first story about her property portfolio that came out, right? Because a few years ago there was one about this another house she had, and was her brother living in it, or was she renting it out?
The selling of the council home.
Yeah, exactly. And there were whole dimensions to that which it was simply impossible to investigate. So the main scandal story that people focused on was, was she paying the proper council tax on it, right? Which is a relatively trivial misdemeanor which has a statute of limitations. But the thing that I just simply wasn't able, because you'd have to actually get her bank to give you her details, is that if she had bought that on a normal mortgage and then let it out and hadn't informed the bank and transferred it to a buy-to-let mortgage and that would have been mortgage fraud, right? But it's just like, if you're a Labour housing minister, it is
housing secretary.
It is deeply unhelpful for you to have a string of stories about your complicated financial arrangements around your multiple property portfolio.
And they are complicated. Look, they are complicated. And our tax system is too complicated. But at the end of the day, no one else, whether you're running a business, whether it's your personal finances, buying a home, inheritance tax, whatever it is, no one else can just say, well, I didn't realise, I was advised to get the correct advice and I didn't get it because I didn't think I needed it.
Yeah.
And the HMRC would go, well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But you're paying a fine.
And I'm generally in favour of HMRC taking a relatively live and let live approach to this kind of thing, because it is a very complicated tax system.
Well, I'm in favour of us having a more simple tax system that you don't need a PhD to understand.
But the other reason that I always have to cap the amount of sympathy I offer people in this situation is that you and I think everyone listening, absolutely knows that if this was a Tory minister or a Tory politician who had exactly the same arrangement, would Angela Rayner be saying, well, actually, these are very complicated situations and this man or woman has tragic family circumstances? No. Of course not. She'd be chuntering on about Tories and trusts, and so...
And it's very interesting that she talked about how distressing it was having to bring her son into it to explain the trust. She was the one who wrote about... No one in the media ever discussed her son, and that was known to quite a few people in the media.
Right?
Because, and again, and I don't go near MPs, or certainly not ministers' children. I think you should absolutely allow these people protection. I think it's awful. People don't. She threw her son into the middle of this. That was her choice to do, to save her skin and her reputation. Again, a lot of us might say that's unforgivable. Does the fact that this is over, does that mean she is free to stand? Because she's done this interview. All of a sudden, when it looks like there is going to be a leadership contest, we discover that HMRC is good. Annoyingly, Paul Brandon of ITV didn't appear to ask her, when did they tell you this? Love to see the correspondence about this. Don't need to know all about her finances. I'd love to see what HMRC, what their ruling was, and when she got that letter, because word is at Westminster that she's known this since roughly February.
So the fascinating thing about that is that means that she has basically if that's true, that means that she has basically deliberately held this back so that she wasn't on people's radars, because even 24 hours ago you were reading the press and it was like, who will Angela Rayner back? Angela Rayner
she can't do it because she's got this HMRC thing hanging over.
It was perfectly plausible that we'd have the Labour Party having a four-way leadership contest with 4 men in it. That is entirely within the...
Given it's going to be a man who wins...
Well, exactly. It's just... it's simply making sure you've got...
Those are the rules.
You've got more of the options that people might actually return. But it is... If so, it suggests a level of cunning at the very least. But has it boxed out Ed Miliband? I do have to confess something here. I have a vested interest because I got Ed Miliband for next Prime Minister at 40-1.
Oh,
so
how much are you putting on it?
Oh, I'm not going to say, but quite a lot.
Quite a lot. Oh, good for you.
Decent chunk.
Not good for the country, but good for you.
My theory is that whoever Labour elect next will be their truss, and we'll probably have another leader after that.
But I think a lot of people might be thinking that. Indeed, even perhaps Andy Burnham might be thinking that. Now, we're told that Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor, that he does have an MP, the Manchester Rusholme MP, who would be willing to stand aside for him. We're told there were a couple of names been thrown into the frame. Every name that's been thrown into the frame so far, by the way, we've been told that person, when you actually ask them, they've gone, no, I'm not willing to stand down. Bearing in mind, you're going to give up a job paying, 96 grand a year plus expenses, quite a lot of kudos and status. I mean, you want to be damn sure your man's going to win, not just a by-election but a subsequent leadership election, and then give you some sort of high-paying job back in return for doing that. I can't imagine many people who go, oh, Andy Burnham, he's such a great bloke, I've fallen on my sword. And anyway, is there a safe seat? But a lot of talk about Ed Miliband running for it. A lot of people talking about Ed Miliband as a possible chancellor. I mean, genuinely terrifying times, people. But now there's a lot of talk, and it's interesting. Rachel Reeves has been out in Downing Street doing interviews this morning, and not mentioning, as far as we can tell, Keir Starmer at all, but talking about her record as chancellor. We had 0.6% growth, the latest GDP figures, and apparently we're all supposed to be going just hallelujah, hallelujah. I mean, yeah, it's a bit higher than the other rubbish growth of other G7 countries this month, but it's been lower than others in the past. This is not growth by any stretch of the imagination, guys. I mean, come on, let's stop pretending. And anyway, this is before the proper impact of the Iran conflict, so things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, if at all. But there's a lot of talk about all the leadership contenders saying we're going to keep Rachel Reeves as Chancellor so as not to spook the bond markets. If Rachel Reeves, the woman who doesn't even know when she worked at the Bank of England, how long, or what job she did at HBOS, who clearly has had a broken abacus for a couple of years, who is the architect of virtually everything that's gone wrong in this country economically and politically for Keir Starmer, if having her maintain her job as the Chancellor of the Exchequer of this country is the best bet for any new leadership contender, that is quite a sad sign for the Labour Party, isn't it? If that's your best you've got.
I mean, the thing that's going to make that incredibly weird as a leadership contest is that if you looked at what the leadership candidates have been saying, it's been, with the exception of Wes Streeting, which is why he definitely won't win, the bond markets, they're going to need to simmer down, right? We need to let Labour be Labour. They'll come round to it. We need to tax for growth, was an actual phrase that was used the other day. Regulate for growth. But Rachel Reeves, the whole point of Rachel Reeves in that scenario is that you're not going to be doing anything on the public finances that the government's not already doing. But the government, within the framework of what the OBR says it can borrow, is already borrowing every last penny.
Yep.
And so that means you're going to have a bunch of... How is that if they have a long contest, this is going to be a really interesting tension. Yeah. Because if you're saying, I'm going to keep Rachel Reeves, I'm going to maintain the fiscal rules, and I'm not going to spook the bond markets, you have nothing to promise Labour backbenchers or Labour members in terms of spending.
Well, you're just going to ignore the bond markets. Didn't you get the memo, Henry?
But then what's the point of retaining Rachel Reeves?
It is. The whole thing is just quite extraordinary. I mean, again, this ain't about the country, people. This is about personal ambition. But I want to know for you, it's a genuine question. Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting are the two names we really are genuinely expecting today are going to challenge Keir Starmer for the Labour leadership. Certainly Wes Streeting, he can't bottle it again today. You've got the good excuse of, look, it was a King's speech, it was inappropriate. But he's either got the names or he hasn't. You've got to go for it. If he doesn't go for it now, the chances of Andy Burnham getting back in, getting a seat, NEC allowing it and him running, he will win it. He will win it. If he's allowed to, he can get back into Parliament, allowed to run, he can win the Labour leadership. So we're looking at, Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, who knows, Ed Miliband as well. They might be worried about splitting that left-wing ticket. Who knows? We're looking at Al Khan's, the defence minister. Who knows who else is going to just put their hat in the ring? Although, because if you need 80 members of MPs, it does limit with 400 MPs, and a bunch who are still tied to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has said very clearly, I will run. If a leadership election is triggered, I will run. So, he'll already have the numbers, because anyone who is in government and doesn't support the Prime Minister would have to resign. In which case, we are going to be entering the fray. How long it lasts, how many last, to actually a vote among Labour members as opposed to just among MPs, we will wait and see. But I want to know, from you, who would be worse for Britain? Who would be best for Britain? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who would you vote for if you're a Labour Party member? 0344 499 1000 numbers. What do you think will happen? I'd love to hear particularly your responses to Angela Rayner saying she's been cleared by HMRC. If you happen to work for HMRC and want to speak anonymously, if you are a tax lawyer, love to hear from you as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. We'll get to your calls up next. This is Talk. breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:26 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. And yet again, we are talking about the prospect of a new Prime Minister, a new Labour leader. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, is expected this morning to throw his hat into the ring, basically put up or shut up, he's been told by the Prime Minister. And he is apparently going to announce that his leadership bid at some point this morning. We look forward to that. We'll bring you that live as and when it happens. A lot of expectation that Angela Rayner, the former Deputy Prime Minister, who claims she's been cleared over unpaid stamp duty, £40,000 of unpaid tax that she's had to pay back to HMRC. She claims that, well, now she is free to run. But of course, obviously, there isn't a leadership vacancy at the moment. We know the Prime Minister's going to run. Could Ed Miliband run as well? What about Al Khan's, the Defence Minister, apparently says, you know, no shots have been fired yet, he said in a comments to a journalist. But he goes, but I'm not afraid of shots on the battlefield. Well, no, as a former head of the SBS, you wouldn't be, would you? But what do you make of it all? And who would be worse for Britain? There's the simple question. Who would be worse for Britain? 8344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Let's go to Chris. He's in Epsom. Hello, Chris.
Morning, Julia.
Morning.
What a couple of days, eh?
I know. I have to say, do you know, last night I was thinking, I'm getting a bit weary of all of this. Today, though, we're back on.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, 2 weeks ago when Millipede couldn't be seen anywhere and wasn't speaking to anyone, I thought, right, the fire's being lit. Because the way I look at it, it's not just the left of Labour and the right of Labour.
Yep.
There's also this globalist group in the middle, of which Hermer, Starmer and Miliband are the leaders of that. Yep. So, unfortunately, not as good as your guest, I managed to get Miliband at 11-1.
Oh, well played.
And when Streeting didn't throw his hat in the ring, when he walked out of number 10 after the cabinet meeting with a face like thunder, Miliband was still at 6-1, so I grabbed some more. Now, the interesting thing is that Wes Streeting, who was favourite, and this is on one of the main gaming sites in the UK, owned by the richest woman in the UK.
OK, yeah, don't name it, yeah.
No, I'm not going to, but she didn't get to be the richest woman without knowing her business. Yeah. Now, Streeting's dropped out to 5-1. He's off the board, according to the gaming. Miliband is at 7-2. Andy Burnham is 3-1. Now, Rayner was completely out the game at 14-1. And after that announcement this morning that HMRC have cleared her, she's dropped down to clear favourite at 11-4.
Oh, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. Well, that's because, again, you know, she's a well-known name. That said, we were hearing earlier this week on the show from people who've been out on the doorsteps during the local elections that actually, you know what, people were really, really peeved by the whole tax scandal stuff regarding Angela Rayner. People say, oh, well, it's all been dragged up by the media. Well, no, she resigned because of a parliamentary standards investigation about her unpaid tax. You know, we didn't force her to go. You know, it was her own actions. In which case, people say, you know what, at the end of the day, you didn't pay the right tax. People don't like that.
Yeah, the thing is, though, Julia, if you're right, in your assumption, she may have got the notification in February, but held it back so that she didn't have to talk to anybody. She was off the board. That's a very, very clever move. But she's not a globalist. Miliband is a globalist. My money is still on Starmer turning to his people and saying, vote for Miliband.
Fascinating. Very interesting call. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. Henry Hill, his police editor of The Critic, joined me today. Well, you're just delighted you got much better odds. Would you say, was it 40 to 1 you got?
40 to 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the drinks are going to be on you if that happens. That said, I mean, as the economy sort of collapses around us, we'll be drinking on you.
Well, I'll just be desperately trying to take back as much of it as I can.
Honestly, packing my bags and ordering the removal vans.
He'll probably take it all off me in tax.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Immediately.
Absolutely.
It's sort of a mug's game.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have been texting in as well, asking who'd be worse for Britain, in particular Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting. Pete says neither are going to do a thing. Anne says if Labour's true intentions are to totally destroy the country, then Rayner will do it faster. That's my argument too. Rob says it's like a choice between cholera and dysentery. Sorry. That's a new take on rock and hard place. They're both useless, says John. So it's going to tickle me all day, that. Reform will surge further ahead with either of those as PM, and the UK will be an even bigger laughingstock overseas. Will says it's telling about the current state of British politics that this is the best Labour have to offer. Neil says they all follow the same agenda, so what's the point? And that's the point you were making earlier, Henry. Like, realistically, what can they do that's different? Again, you put taxes up, cost of borrowing more, cutting public services. I think there's just going to be handouts for everyone. I mean, just seriously, get yourself a job in the public sector now, everybody, because the money's going to be a-flowing just for a short time.
How long did Liz Truss get? 50 days?
Yeah, was it 49 days? But she stayed on about a week after she said she was going. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Do you know what we haven't had time to talk about yet? Is Donald Trump meeting with Xi Jinping in China. By the way, got better treatment than our Prime Minister got. He was allowed like a little tourist package to go and see, some palaces. I mean, it's absolutely humiliating. But there we are. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about Nigel Farage. He's now facing a proper parliamentary investigation into that £5 million donation as well. Oh, yeah, and we are going to also talk about that Tommy Robinson rally, the Unite the Kingdom rally this weekend, same time as a rally. It's kind of a pro-Palestinian. Let's face it, it's an anti-Jewish hate march. Let's call it what it is. Marking the Nikba. It's basically marking a massacre of Jews, for goodness sake, to all intents and purposes. Nakba, sorry. And police basically said they're going to put 4,000 people, officers, on the streets with these two protests going on the same day. We'll talk about that as well. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be talking to the former Labour MP, Baroness Kate Hoey. What does she make of all the runners and riders in the Labour leadership contest that is still not yet happening? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Henry Hill's still here, and delighted to be joined right now by Baroness Kate Hemming. She's an independent peer and was, of course, a Labour MP in her time. A very good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning.
Well, I mean, it's all got lively again. We are expecting this morning that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, will finally stop bottling it and announce his leadership bid to challenge Keir Starmer. We know Keir Starmer has said he will stand. Lots of expectation that Angela Rayner, who now has just miraculously discovered she's been cleared by HMRC, she claims, over her unpaid £40,000 of stamp duty on her second home, that she may well be putting her hat in the ring. Certainly hasn't ruled it out in an interview on ITV this morning. I'm asking the question of our audience today, who would be worse for Britain? What's your answer to that?
Oh, worst for Britain would be Ed Miliband if he happened to be coming through. But I the whole thing is just getting to be like some kind of circus. And I think Wes Streeting has, he's really got to decide and go very quickly. Otherwise, he's looking like he's, chickened out, which, doesn't look very good. I mean, to be honest, I don't have any real enthusiasm. I mean, even if I was back in the Labour Party, which I certainly won't be, I wouldn't have any enthusiasm for them. The only one that I had a slight interest in involvement with was, of course, Andy Burnham, because I worked with him when I was sports minister. And, I like Andy. He's changed, I think, quite a lot since he went off to be mayor, and he did a good job there.
Well, he's a lefty now. He was a Blairite through and through.
Yeah,
now he's a lefty. It's difficult to know, isn't it?
Yes, he's changed, like I suppose most of them have. But it's my view is that it isn't going to make much difference whoever becomes the leader, because actually it's the Labour Party and its policies and its attitudes to working class people and to all the kind of issues that used to be so important to Labour, and now they're obsessed about climate change and digital ID, all those
Palestine.
In the King's speech yesterday, there was hardly anything. Well, there was a few things, but most of the bills are things that they got a real kicking on last week. So I genuinely don't, the whole idea that I get all this EU stuff is going to bring back people in the red wall areas in the north of England, and then digital ID, which has proved to be so unpopular with particularly older people who, already find it extremely difficult to get a real person to talk.
And again, already, I say, very, very unpopular. I mean, again, there was just so little in there in terms
of... Nothing, Julia, on welfare. No. Nothing on the...
Well, that's the issue. You said it wouldn't make any difference who gets immunity. To a certain extent, again, your borrowing costs are your borrowing costs. The numbers are where they are. The international situation, Ukraine... Iran is out of the government, any Prime Minister's control. But also, crucially, so are the Labour backbenchers. They've been flexing their muscles since, mid-2024, very soon after the government became elected. They know they've got the power, and they know that any Prime Minister will back down on any big issue. They can have their way, and the left-wing backbenchers are basically going to be in charge whoever's Prime Minister, aren't they?
Yes, and also, of course, but the only thing is now many of them beginning to realise that time is up. But of course, that can make them much more determined to get something through in the next, couple of years.
If we've only got 5 years, we may as well, scorched earth policy.
We might as well go out with a bang rather than go out with a whimper. But, I think the only difference it might make is this: presumably all of the candidates practically who are standing have a little bit more charisma than Keir Starmer. Not much in some cases, but certainly, there's no doubt about it, Angela Rayner would be a much better at sort of talking to the public, whether the public liked what she was saying.
Would she? I mean, calling people, calling the Tories scum.
But I meant in terms of just, communicating. She actually looks like she kind of believes what she's saying, and it isn't a sort of robot. I mean, that's what I think she's got.
That's interesting. Let me play you a little clip. We've already played a clip about her saying she was cleared of wrongdoing by HMRC.
I don't understand that, by the way. I don't understand.
No. Well, we'll come back to that. Let me play you another little quick clip of her talking with ITV News about whether or not she would like to be Prime Minister. Have a watch and a listen.
Would you want to lead the team? Because the team does have to have a leader. Would you want to be leader?
We do have to have a leader, and we've got a leader, and I'm not going to go into hypotheticals, but...
So you're not ruling out potentially taking over as leader?
But I have said that we have to do better, and we have to drive forward that change. I did that in government. I was very successful. I brought in the Employment Rights Act. They said we couldn't do it in 100 days. We did. We had our detractors from it, and we still delivered it.
We're talking in the abstract, though, really, aren't we? We're not getting to the nub of what's really going on right now in the Labour Party, which is that you're split down the middle. Some people say the Prime Minister should go. Some say he should stay. You're not really telling me what you think.
No, what's happening in the Labour Party at the moment is we've just had a severe beating off the electorate, and our ministers, our cabinet members, our Prime Minister and our members and our voters are saying things have to change.
And some people say change the leader.
Well, some people are saying that. But what I'm saying is the delivery of what we promised the electorate is the most important thing that we need to be concentrating on at the moment.
So no leadership challenge?
I want us to pull together.
She's certainly there. Kate Hoey was not denying that she would stand. Do you think that she's going to run?
I think if it comes a way that Andy Burnham can stand, I don't think she will. But you see, I mean, the time lag is so wrong for him. It's going to be very difficult. So I think she would find it difficult not to put her hat in the ring now. And then at least the people who put their hats in the ring think that then eventually they'll get a nice big job, whoever does get to be leader. That's always also thinking about it. But, you know, she's going to appeal to the Labour Party members. Yeah. And of course, they're the ones who, in the end, actually vote for leader once they decide who's on this. But, you know, this could all kind of end up with nothing happening and Starmer staying on, which, of course, would be in the interests of both the Conservatives and Reform. Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? And I've talked to quite a few people in Conservative Reform about, you know, wouldn't you be better off having a Prime Minister who's uniquely incapable of rescuing his own premiership, bad communicator, disliked, I mean, even hated on the doorsteps? Wouldn't it be better to have him limping on rather than someone new who, you just don't know, who might turn things around?
Well, they're bound to get a bounce if they get a new leader. There's bound to be an immediate kind of reaction, I would have thought, no matter who it is. That's sort of natural almost. Somebody new, you know, people think, oh, well, that's different. But, you know, I think it's, you know, for the sake of the country, I suppose people do feel that, you know, he's bringing the country down so much in so many ways, apart from supposedly what he thinks he's great internationalist, but that's not going to last. And I think that, you know, that's why people are saying, well, for the sake of the country, we have to get rid of him, rather than actually, because I imagine both Conservative leader and Reform would genuinely like him to stay on.
Yeah, interesting. Now, you were saying just before we played that clip of Angela Rayner that you're a bit, should we say, confused, unclear about how she's been cleared by HMRC. What did you want to say there?
Well, you know, I just feel it's all a bit strange that it's suddenly she's announcing this morning that she's been cleared. I mean, she's been cleared in the sense that she has now paid it off, obviously, but is she being fined? I mean, most people, HMRC do actually fine you if you do something even quite minor. Yep. So, you know, maybe she's just not telling us that. And obviously, I suppose the HMRC can't say anything because
it's a private matter. Yeah. But also, when she got this information, because there seems to be a rumour going around that this was back in February.
I hadn't heard that she'd known for some time and has waited for the appropriate moment. It's all a bit strange, and you know that will linger too. That's going to people are going to ask questions, and presumably there'll be a freedom of information questions asked. Not that they'll get anything really substantial, but journalists will put it all together and get something that may not be as open and clear-cut as it looks.
Yeah. But this is very similar, isn't it? Say, Nigel Farage, you know, he's being investigated by Parliament standards over this £5 million donation he's had from a crypto billionaire who was given, what, 20 million in total very publicly. So there's no like, oh, I'm trying to hide getting money from this guy going on. But it was a £5 million personal gift, he said. It was back at the start of 24, before he decided to run back to be an MP and to go back to the leadership of the Reform Party. And I know that absolutely at that time he was not planning to come back. I'm discussing these things with him later on in the year. But he's saying, I didn't have to declare it. There was no reason to declare it, even though you're supposed to declare anything, anything that you get within a year of becoming an MP, because it was personal and private. It was about his security. And I'm actually perfectly willing to accept that it was for his security, because he does have huge security costs to keep him safe. But it's very simple. He just needs to publish the receipts, doesn't he? This is what I'm paying for security, and this is what it's being paid for. This is how it's being paid.
Yes, I think he does have to handle this, quite carefully, even if he's done nothing wrong, which I actually don't think he has. But it's the kind of attachment of the word sleaze that really can affect a politician quite strongly. So I think he does need to be more. But I think probably when it had to go to that committee, that's sort of the way it definitely would have ended up there. The reality is, of course, that all that they could do to him would be to, perhaps dismiss him from Parliament for a certain period of time. And if it was a big enough, long enough time, then he would have a recall vote in his constituency. I mean, if you might remember, Ian Paisley had that years ago, and his constituents actually voted not to have a by-election. But then, of course, if there was a by-election, I think it'd be pretty clear he would win. But I just think, because that amount of money is so huge in my view, other people's, he needs to be explain a little bit more. But to Christopher Harburn, it was probably peanuts, because he is so rich. Yeah. And there's no doubt about it. I saw certainly, and I'm sure you did during the referendum campaign, how much security he needed even then. It was hugely costly. So somebody has to pay it. And
it should be the state. It should be the taxpayer, in my view. But there we are. Baroness Kate Hoey covered a lot of ground there. Thank you so much. Independent peer, former Labour MP, doesn't get half a vote in the no longer a party member in this leadership election we're likely to get. Henry Hill, listening to all of that in the studio. Anything you'd like to come back on?
I think on the Nigel Farage thing, which is worth saying, just because you keep getting people saying the media aren't covering this, right? And it's like,
I get that. I'm like literally just a 10-minute conversation with Richard Tice about it.
Exactly, and I think that there are two things to establish. The first is, as you say, that he has actually spent this on what he said he spent it on, because it has been pointed out that he did at one point, I think, endorse Christopher Harburn's crypto company, and that can be completely fine, but it's important he publishes receipts. But also, I think he said, and I might be wrong about this, but I think he said that he was advised that he didn't have to declare this. Now, again, if that's in writing, that would be incredibly useful for Nigel Farage, and if it isn't, it's not the case. But I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I mean, have you seen his polling in Clacton? If they got rid of it, he'd be fine. Yeah,
absolutely. 10:48 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Love to hear your thoughts on both stories. 0344 499 1000. As you know, you can always get in touch on any of the topics that you want to talk about. Up next, we are going to be talking about Ed Miliband planning to basically shut down North Sea oil and gas, because he really is that crazy. And the latest GDP figures. Are they as good as the ministers seem to be thinking they are? This is Talk. some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. Let's turn our attention to, well, what are the headlines today? Good night, UK. As there's a big concern over the city giants dumping bonds over the Starmer leadership crisis. You know, how much worse can it get? But also Ed Miliband, man who some people are touting as a future Chancellor, vowing permanent shutdown of the North Sea. Let's talk about all of this right now with opinion and features editor at the City AM newspaper, Alice Denby. Good morning to you, Alice.
Hi, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Let's start, if we can, on the runners and riders in terms of the leadership of the Labour Party. Some of them in the past have talked about how, we shouldn't be in hock to the bond market. Trouble is, we are in hock to the bond markets and we're paying an absolute fortune on the interest of our huge, huge debts. Who are they most worried about?
I think the point is that for anybody to beat Keir Starmer in a leadership election, they need to be looser on the fiscal rules, and the bond markets absolutely hate this. Look, sometimes this feels quite abstract and difficult to understand, and I'm not an economist, but I spend a lot of time, as you can imagine, with business people and bankers and so on, and they've spent this whole week just kind of showing me their phones with graphs spiking and with expressions of horror. And essentially, I think the best way to explain the bond markets is this is how, global markets bet on Britain, how seriously they take our country and how they think of the future of Britain. And they are appalled by the idea of a country going further left. We cannot afford to borrow anymore.
But we're not going to go bust. I mean, they don't think we have never once reneged on any of our debts as a nation.
It's not a question of going bust, but it's look, the real risk here is massive inflation, because we have the worst. We have the highest energy costs in the OECD. So the real exposure Britain has is to massive inflation. And that is the risk that the bond market.
And why do they care about that?
Because it makes everybody poorer. And obviously, if you're invested in Britain and there's massive inflation, that inflates away all your money. Right. And the way that this will affect real people is in their mortgage costs, the cost of borrowing, if you run a small business, if you want to invest in a thing, all of this is going to make it more expensive and more dangerous. It's just a much more risky environment.
So no one can ignore that this is a big risk. Now, well, we've just had some latest growth figures out. And Labour seem to be cheering about it. Rachel Reeves out in Downing Street gleefully talking about this 0.6% growth in GDP between January and March. This, of course, before any proper impacts of the Iran conflict could have hit, because we weren't consuming, the oil and the liquefied natural gas and things that was stuck. We were consuming stuff that hadn't already been stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. Is 0.6% growth, is that something to cheer about?
Look, it's better than expected. Let's give Rachel Reeves some credit for that. But it's compared to the US grew by 2%, China grew by 5%, and I think that there's a lot of this is down to economic activity being brought forward in anticipation of things getting a lot worse. So it's not really something to cheer. And in any case, all of this political chaos will obviously affect our growth prospects going forward. So, 0.6% is pathetic anyway, better than expected, but it's only going to get worse.
I mean, God, happy Thursday from Alice, everybody. Let's also talk about how it certainly will get worse with Ed Miliband as our energy secretary. Labour is apparently planning to ban new oil and gas fields in Britain, making it harder for any future government to reopen the North Sea. We've already got a ban on new drilling, but a legal prohibition on new drilling will be included in the Energy Independence Bill, part of a raft of legislation set out in the King's Speech. Now, how does this tie the hands? We already knew that they had a ban on new oil and gas drilling, well, new sites, didn't they? How does this impact any future government? Can't they just change the law back again to something more sane?
Yeah, presumably. I mean, both, I think, Reform and the Conservatives have said that they would overturn this ban. But let's be honest, as I said, energy costs are one of the biggest risk premiums in the UK economy. This is such a mad and self-harming policy. Norway doesn't do this. But I would also say that look, some of the blame for this has to be placed on the Conservatives. It was them who did a windfall tax on North Sea oil profits. Like the idea that there's such a thing as unearned profits in a cyclical market like energy is just fundamentally absurd.
I mean, the energy companies did really badly during lockdown when everyone basically stopped moving, stopped flying, stopped driving and sat at home. They had a massive hit and no one bailed them out.
Precisely. If any of your listeners who run a small business, if you somehow have a good year and then the government comes along and says, oh, you've made excess profits, that's obviously unfair, right? And that's what the Tories did to the energy companies, and Labour have continued that. And of course, that deters investment. I think there's a lot of evidence that if you had a much more favourable tax and regulatory environment, that you could do much more exploring in the North Sea and we could have a lot more fossil fuels there. And let's be clear, there's no way that we get to net zero without continuing with fossil fuels. We do need to have clean energy, but we also need fossil fuels as a backup. And it's insane to leave our own natural resources in the ground when other countries are not doing the same self-harming policy.
And we are buying Norway. We're literally buying Norway's oil and gas when they're taking it out of pretty much the same spot as we could be doing it. And we, of course, don't get the taxes on that, don't get the exports on that either. I mean, it's genuinely painful, isn't it? Can I ask you just finally, very briefly about this HMRC decision? We're told, again, HMRC can't issue a statement on this, it's a private matter, but Angela Rayner says that she's been cleared by HMRC over her unpaid stamp duty, 40 grand. She has paid that back, but apparently not cleared of any wrongdoing. Do you think it adds up?
I think the timing is quite suspicious. Look, I think that the trouble is, if we're going to have a leadership challenge, we're going to get a new Labour leader that no one voted for. We're very used to that. We had it a lot of times with the Tories. But I really think that the public should be able to have their say about whether or not they think that Angela Rayner is an honest and a serious person who should be leading this country. OK, although
our constitution does not require that. We don't elect prime ministers. No. We're not presidential. But you think that might harm her. Really good to talk to you, Alice Denby, opinion and features editor there at City AM newspaper. Henry Hill, coming back to the bond markets, the risk of inflation, investment. I mean, this is it. Just the whole thing could just explode. I mean, that's one of the things that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are putting out. Is sort of, hey, you think it's bad, it could get a hell of a lot worse with any of the others.
Well, I mean, this is the golden rule of leadership, right? When things are going well, why on earth would you change because I'm doing well? And when things are doing badly, you don't change horses in the middle of the stream. So you never have to leave.
Especially when there's a war that we're not involved in.
Absolutely. So you never have to leave under any circumstances. I mean, this is just a sort of permanent drumbeat of things getting really bad. And I think the thing that, when you said earlier, we're not going to go back, we're not going to go bankrupt and all the rest of it, I'm slightly wary. No, we're not going to do that immediately, right? But actually, if you look, Venezuela in the 1990s, perfectly functional, first world economy, right? Like, this kind of thing is how you completely kick the foundations out from under your economy, right? And so I think that we need to be careful about saying it couldn't happen here.
OK. I'm getting really worried now. I'm getting really worried. Kind of treat it this little bit of Westminster fun and game, but it's not. This is literally about people losing their businesses, losing their jobs, losing their homes, losing their life savings.
It's the country people's kids will grow up in.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There is an element, isn't there? People can sort of, think it's a bit of a joke, but actually, is whatever is on offer, unless there's a general election, worse than what we've got now? What would be the moral thing to do for, as you say, for our children? We are the world. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that. Give us a call. This is Talk.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. It's 3 minutes past 11 o'clock and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining us. An awful lot going on today. Are we going to have that long-awaited leadership challenge from Wes Streeting today? Lots of talk of it happening in the next hour. Reports in the last few moments that some of those MPs who signed the loyalty letter, 100-odd MPs who signed a loyalty letter for the Prime Minister this after some 80-odd MPs said he had to go in the wake of the local elections, that some of those loyal MPs have now said to the Prime Minister, you have to go, and that a stream of cabinet ministers are heading into number 10 today to say you've lost our support and you have to go. I think we can guess some of the names there. Shabana Mahmood, possibly Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, and others, I would think would be people I would have expected to be on that list, but who knows right now. We are certainly expecting Wes Streeting to make an announcement. We're also expecting Angela Rayner to throw her hat in the ring because she has suddenly, quite out of the blue, discovered that HMRC has cleared her, she says, of any wrongdoing over that investigation into her tax affairs, that £40,000 unpaid stamp duty. She resigned as Deputy Prime Minister of this country and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party because of an investigation by the Privileges and Standards Watchdog, who basically found there had been wrongdoing and she'd failed to pay tax that she was due. She now basically is, in her view and her supporters' view, cleared and free to run for the leadership. Will she be joined by Ed Miliband as well, the Energy Secretary? Possibly also, we understand, Al Khan's. He's the Defence Minister, former Colonel in the Royal Marines Commandos. Will he be running as well? Well, word is that he will. We know that Andy Burnham believes that he does now have a seat that he could run in a by-election, a safe Labour seat, if such a thing exists in Manchester. Rushholm MP Afzal Khan is understood to be said to be willing to stand aside for Andy Burnham. But can he get back into power, or get into Parliament before a leadership election actually starts? Big question marks about that. I would love to hear your thoughts, particularly with Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting, but add in anyone else you want to throw in. Mickey Mouse, anyone you want. They're both expected to challenge Keir Starmer for the Labour leadership today. Who would be worse for Britain? That's my question to you. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. We're also going to be talking about Donald Trump. He held 2 hours of talks with Xi Jinping in Beijing. It was an hour longer than they'd planned. These things always overrun. Both leaders are promising closer ties. Still some question marks about Taiwan's future and whether or not Donald Trump will protect their independence. We're also going to be talking about the Metropolitan Police. They're going to be putting 4,000 officers on the beat on the Saturday ahead of 2 rallies, Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally and basically, to all intents and purposes, a pro-Palestinian rally. They could use armoured vehicles to prevent rival protesters clashing and facial recognition, but only at the Tommy Robinson rally, not at the other one. Makes you wonder why they think that's a bigger threat when there have been far more arrests at rallies when it comes to the pro-Palestinian issue in terms of people who've actually been committing blatant open crimes of hate speech and anti-Semitic speech during those marches. We'll talk about all that later in the show. Joining me today, I'm delighted to say, is political editor of The Critic, Henry Hill. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Keen Westminster watcher, office space there. You know all the runners and riders. You know what's going on. When we are hearing about Wes Streeting possibly going within the hour, cabinet ministers possibly going in on his behalf to say to the Prime Minister today, mate, you're toast, you're not fit for the job, we are going to be supporting someone else. The unlikelihood that we won't hear from Angela Rayner by the end of the day. There is a point that once the ball starts rolling, it picks up momentum very quickly.
Yeah, it's one of the unfair things about what we journalists do, really. Alan Clark, in his History of the Conservatives, writes about this, which is basically where the editors decide that a leadership contest is necessary, and therefore they keep writing that leadership speculation is mounting until they get one. But
is this a media creation?
Oh no. But it's simply what I was speaking to is a politician complaining about the media is like a sailor complaining about the sea, as Enoch Powell once said. But I was agreeing with you. I think that there comes a point when essentially something like this takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
You can't get anything else up on the grid. You can't talk about anything that you want to talk about. And also, if you're the Prime Minister, and this is why I think it was so absurd the other day when people were suggesting that Starmer issue a timeline for his retirement. No, the moment you do that, your authority is shot. It happened to Blair, right? The moment you say you're gone, because your entire ability to transact with your party is based on bestowal of future favours and all the rest of it. So it will be interesting to see whether Starmer fights it out. But I think the interesting little wrinkle about this is that these people who signed the loyalty letter have started peeling away since Angela Rayner came down the mountain with this tablet of stone from HMRC.
And we know even among the 80-odd who signed, basically made it clear that they did no longer supported the Prime Minister and wrote letters and some 4 ministers letters of resignation as well. They didn't all come, they weren't all Wes Streeting's people. They came from many different wings of the party, left and right and centre. So, who knows where it's going to go. A lot of people, of course, end up backing, let's face it, the person they think is going to get it, because then, of course, you get a job. To a certain extent, people running in any leadership contest will be doing so to get themselves a better job. I mean, Al Khan's, who knows? I mean, I never make predictions unless it's like in the next few hours. Al Khan's is, if he runs, well, there's Defence Secretary for him then, sorted. And we'll see what happens. A lot of talk that Rachel Reeves gets to be Chancellor no matter what. I mean, look, it's better than Ed Miliband. I mean, frying pan, fire. Make your choice, people. Or as someone said earlier, what was it, dysentery or cholera? In terms of the two leadership contenders we expect to know about in the next few hours. But basically, don't spook the bond markets, whatever you do, by suggesting anyone different would come in and who might breach those fiscal rules. I mean, we've already got a massive spike in our bond, in our cost of borrowing. I mean, way higher than other countries. And again, because of government policies over the years, including the policies of the current Chancellor.
Exactly. I think the thing that constantly baffles me about the the way that Labour MPs and some progressives talk about the fiscal rules, is just the idea that Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are playing politics on hard mode for no reason.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, why are they doing the fiscal rules? It's like, do you reckon Rachel Reeves is sitting there being like, man, I could actually spend loads more money and be more popular, but I just really I want to do the New Game Plus.
And the fiscal rules are that by the end of this Parliament, they will not be spending any more than they're taking in tax in a given year, which we are currently we currently are. Well, no, actually, we're actually spending more, but actually most of that money is going on paying off debt.
Yes.
Well, no, it's not even doing that. It's paying the interest on the debt that we're not paying off.
And also that we won't be borrowing to cover revenue expenditures. There will be some borrowing for capital. I think the other.
But these are made-up rules to a certain extent.
Well, they are made-up rules to a certain extent. But what are they made up to do? Yeah. Right? And I think this is the critical thing to understand with fiscal rules. The fiscal rules exist to let the government borrow more money than it otherwise could. Yeah. Because they reassure the bond markets, and that means that the government can borrow at a lower rate.
Yeah.
Right? If we didn't have the fiscal rules and the bond market was just guessing, we would have less money to spend. The fiscal rules are literally a device created by politicians, and most of them are completely rubbish. And the Tories did this as well. Yeah. When they had their rolling 5-year deficit reduction target. It's like, we'll definitely be doing it tomorrow.
Yeah. And also what you put into day-to-day expenditure and what counts as an investment. I mean, look, buying a house is an investment. Buying a van for your business that you need, to make money, that's an investment. They talk about investment in the NHS. No, paying nurses and doctors more is not an investment. It's a current expenditure.
And I feel quite sorry for Wes Streeting on this, because Rachel Reeves was talking about all the money that she's given him to fix the NHS. And then you look at the capital budget of that, which is the stuff that could pay for new machines, new buildings. Yeah. It's £6 billion. And the rest of it is all just wages.
Doesn't buy that many MRI machines. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, again, how many net zero officers do you need? In terms of Wes Streeting's chances of winning the leadership of the Labour Party, the conventional view, and again, I never know. The conventional view is it just what everyone in Westminster says, which is nearly always wrong, by the way. Unless it's like, again, what's happening the next few days. I've certainly said all week, Prime Minister's a dead man walking, dead man crawling. In fact, he's a dead man. Day tomorrow, today, doesn't matter. He's gone. We all know he's going to be gone. I don't believe he survives the summer, unless I'm going to leave, but we're going to have a leadership contest that lasts longer. But in terms of him having to say he's going, I think we are in absolute end days territory. But the conventional wisdom is, Andy Burnham, if he can get in, he wins. No, hands down. We also know that if you want to win the Labour leadership contest, whether you're Jeremy Corbyn or whether you're Keir Starmer, if you go back to what he was saying in his manifesto when he was running in 2020, you have to be on the left. No one in the party thinks Wes Streeting's on the left. Now, he's way further left than most people in this country, but not of Labour Party members. He's on the right for Labour Party members. If we do have any candidate on the left, whether it is Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband or anyone else, Wes Streeting, do you think there's just no way he wins?
I mean, look, I obviously will hold my hand up and said I was a Conservative home, not Labour home, for 10 years.
Yeah.
So
and that's the grassroots website for Conservative Party
members.
My
hunch is that the only leadership contest that Wes Streeting wins now is one where somehow Shabana Mahmood is the other candidate, right? Because I think that the left, the more, as you say, the more left-wing candidate will win. Because even if it doesn't go to the membership, right, because the left know they'll win a membership vote, the only way they agree to a coronation, if the coronation is on their terms,
one of their people.
Anyway. But if you're Wes, and you do happen to have this data showing that you're the only candidate that the bond markets actually like, I think there's a non-zero chance, I think I mentioned it before, that basically Labour is about to do the trust thing, right? Yeah. They have a leadership contest, they go off to one side, they try and do it without balancing the books, the markets kick their teeth in, and then they have to basically have another leader, and they need that leader to be as reassuring as possible. Yeah. And so I think maybe there's a chance that you end up, by the end of the year, with Wes Streeting back in, basically as the please God put the fires out candidate. I wouldn't rule that out.
That's very interesting. Well, lots of reports that cabinet ministers have now told the Prime Minister, or there could be more delegations today, that he has to go. He was very chirpy, wasn't he, at the speeches after the King's speech, the state opening of Parliament. A lot of people, I mean, there's I've got to be honest, I find a lot of those speechifying moments in the Commons rather tedious. I think I've watched too many of them, a bit too long toothed. Kemi Badenoch, certainly. I mean, the general view is that she absolutely went for the jugular there on Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, and on Wes Streeting. Indeed, I do wonder. They want to be careful who they wish for, what they wish for, because you may be better off with a mortally wounded Keir Starmer dragging on and on, rather than someone who may or may not get a bounce. Now, I would have thought that actually in the country, Wes Streeting might be able to do that, Andy Burnham might be able to do that, depending on their policies. I think they would be dragged immediately by trade unions and indeed by Labour backbenchers to the left, which is not where the vast majority of people are. This whole, you've got to pay the public sector workers. 80% of people in this country go to work, don't work for the public sector. They just simply do the numbers. It's that simple. Where are we with Angela Rayner, though? Because I want to play you a couple of clips of her speaking today to ITV News. She did an interview with The Guardian and with ITV News, talking about how she claims, HMRC is a private tax matter. They don't comment on private tax matters. She has been cleared of wrongdoing by the HMRC over that £40,000 of unpaid stamp duty. She has paid that stamp duty that she did owe to HMRC. She's supposed to pay 70 grand. She'd only originally paid 30 grand. She got investigated by the Parliamentary Standards Watchdog. She is the one who resigned as a result of that as Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. She wasn't hounded out. She was gone bang to rights. Well, this is what she told ITV's Paul Brand today.
Can you just tell me what the decision was from HMRC as you understand it?
Well, I welcome HMRC's conclusion and they've said that there wasn't any wrongdoing and that I didn't try to avoid paying tax or I wasn't careless in the way in which I conducted myself. At the time when I was in government and this came to my attention that there could have been tax owed, I was really shocked about that because I'd taken advice and I've never wanted to avoid paying my tax. And for me, that was the most distressing thing, is that people felt that I was tax dodging or trying to set up trusts to avoid tax or being careless by not taking the appropriate advice. And HMRC have concluded that isn't the case.
Did that hurt when that was being bandied around, that you might have done it on purpose?
It did, and it hurt me because I had to then talk about my son and his personal circumstances, which I think, it's not fair on him. He's a young man now, and, it's his history that is not really for me to band around the airwaves. But equally, I didn't want people to think that the person who they know me as, the person who went into politics to fight for people, suddenly dropped all her values and was just on the take.
That was Angela Rayner talking to Paul Brand of ITV. I have to say, he's a great reporter. I'm a very big fan of his. But, bizarre question there, Henry Hill, wasn't it? Did it hurt? Well, it hurt me, the fact that 40 grand of taxes that were due to the Treasury weren't paid, because the rest of us are paying our taxes. I paid my full stamp duty when I bought my flat.
Yeah, obviously it depends. If you're Angela Rayner, you probably negotiate with the broadcasters as to who you give this to, and maybe getting that.
Who's going to be nice to me?
That sort of
I
question.
wouldn't have asked her did it hurt.
But it's just irrelevant. It's like, was this hard thing hard? Former minister.
Was the thing you should have done in the first place hard? Yeah. But also, it's interesting because. Again, she's the one who brought her son into it. She's the one who she said, I didn't have to do this, but I didn't want people to think, I was a bad person, basically. So you're the one, no one was reporting on the trust for her son. It was her private matter and her son being, severely health damaged by problems in the NHS. By the way, NHS she constantly defends and was in the meantime suing on behalf of her son for a very, very substantial payout for his care. But she's the one who threw her son's predicament under the bus.
Yeah, I don't think...
No one in the media would have dared touch that, and quite rightly.
I don't even think it's a question of dared, right? Because dared implies you want to. And actually the overwhelming majority of journalists, whatever the public may think of us sometimes, you don't touch people's children.
And right? Especially a child
they didn't choose to have their parents go into...
an adult, but...
They didn't choose to have their children, their parents go into politics. They're complete civilians, and you leave them out of it, right?
Yeah.
All the time.
Absolutely. I don't even want people bringing that, this whole bringing your wife to work at party conference day nonsense as well. It's interesting. Well, let's also listen to a quick clip of her talking about whether or not she would like to be the Prime Minister.
Would you want to lead the team? Because the team does have to have a leader. Would you want to be leader?
We do have to have a leader, and we've got a leader, and I'm not going to go into hypotheticals, but...
So you're not ruling out potentially taking over as leader?
But I have said that we have to do better, and we have to drive forward that change. I did that in government. I was very successful. I brought in the Employment Rights Act. They said we couldn't do it in 100 days. We did. We had our detractors from it, and we still delivered it.
We're talking in the abstract, though, really, aren't we? We're not getting to the nub of what's really going on right now in the Labour Party, which is that you're split down the middle. Some people say the Prime Minister should go. Some say he should stay. You're not really telling me what you think.
No, what's happening in the Labour Party at the moment is we've just had a severe beating off the electorate, and our ministers, our cabinet members, our Prime Minister and our members and our voters are saying things have to change.
And some people say change the leader.
Well, some people are saying that. But what I'm saying is the delivery of what we promised the electorate is the most important thing that we need to be concentrating on at the moment.
So no leadership challenge?
I want us to pull together.
Yeah, she certainly ain't denying there's a leadership challenge. Tell you what's very interesting, going back to the tax affairs, Henry Hill, is that Dan Needle, who is a tax specialist, he's uncovered an awful lot of stuff, an awful lot of potential wrongdoing and donations. I mean, and he's equal opportunities. I mean, he's very much a Labour supporter, but he is someone who has taken a very equal opportunities view in terms of people not paying their full dues. And he has said quite categorically, Guardian is reporting Angela Rayner's now pays 40 grand of extra stamp duty, but HMRC accepted she wasn't careless, so she didn't pay a penalty. On the public facts, he says, that's hard to understand. He says his team doesn't understand the not careless finding, spoken to other senior lawyers, including a retired judge, and he says, and we are a bit mystified. He said it's hard to see how a taxpayer undertaking a complex transaction involving a court-ordered trust for a disabled child and the purchase of a second property and twice told to obtain specialist tax advice can be said to have taken reasonable care by not doing so. The conclusion is even harder where the taxpayer was Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State for Housing. He says the HMRC could have misapplied the law. They may be wrong, or there may be facts of which they are unaware. But on the facts that are publicly known, and bearing in mind we've got their report from the Standards investigator as well, this conclusion does not make sense. I mean, she's going to have to publish some of that paperwork, isn't she, realistically?
I mean, it might be that she just tries to bulldoze through it, right? Because let's face it, we're all going to have an awful lot of things to talk about over the next few weeks, and it might be that she just tries to bare knuckle this
Well, if you want to be Prime Minister of this country and you don't obey tax law, you don't understand some basic stuff, and you don't take advice from experts. Yeah, no, exactly what I'm saying. But an awful lot of the people, members of the public who can't afford an 800 grand flat, who don't have a second home, who are perfectly sympathetic to her, don't have 40 grand in cash. I mean, she's been doing a lot of speeches and getting big money for those, and she's able to therefore pay that amount of money. And would have been able to pay it previously. She's been on a decent salary for a long time. But at the end of the day, voters take a very dim view of people who don't pay their full taxes. I took a very dim view of Nadeem Sahawi, Tory Chancellor briefly. Who did not pay the full taxes due on his business taxes. I'm sorry, people don't like that. You know why? Because most people in this country are law-abiding people who pay their taxes, and if they don't pay their taxes, they get fined and they get treated very differently. And I'm sorry, it does not add up to me. It does not add up to someone like Dan Needle, who knows a heck of a lot more than I do, and a heck of a lot more than Angela Rayner does. Yeah, and it's what we said at the beginning, right? Essentially, like, if you have this rule and she received this advice, and that advice was really hedged, both of them said, we are not the right lawyers for this. We recommend that you go to the correct lawyers. Then it is, and I think the other thing about this is that if this was a court finding, then Angela Rayner might at least have done a great service to many other Britons, because suddenly this would be precedent, right? Yeah. And if you're being investigated by HMRC, you can go, well, actually, in the case of Crown versus Rayner, it was found that none of these rules make any sense. To a certain extent, if HMRC don't comment on a private person's taxes, they will never. They will never say contradict what she's had to say. But I have a funny feeling if what she's saying is not fully correct, I have a funny feeling we will have a way of finding that out, because someone will be cross about that at HMRC. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Lots more I want to talk about, including Donald Trump meeting with Xi Jinping, including the policing of these rallies at the weekend. We will get to this. First up, though, we're going to take a quick break, and then just too much to talk about in terms of Labour politics. And that is a problem, isn't it? Perhaps we shouldn't talk about it so much, because there are other things that also need to be discussed. We will take a quick break right now, and then we'll get to your call. So 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Who would be worse for Britain? Looking at Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner, many expecting them to declare a leadership. It's today. Who would be worse? Well, maybe you think it'd be Keir Starmer. Love to hear your thoughts. Let us know. This is Talk. Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:27 is the time. Coming up very soon, we're going to be talking to former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards and also a former Labour man, no longer Labour political commentator James Mathewson, as we are expecting, well, frankly, in the next half hour that we're going to see Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, announcing his leadership bid against the Prime Minister. Let's get to your calls. So what do you make of all these people running as runners and riders, and who would be worse for Britain? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Michael is in London. Hello, Michael. What do you want to say?
Oh, hi, Julia. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thank you. First time.
I'll be nice.
Thank you. Well, I'm a huge fan, so thank you very much.
Very kind.
Yeah, just on this Streeting and Rayner business, really. I mean, I think really it's a kind of face-saving exercise, really, for Streeting if he does now come out and declare his intention to run. But I think if he does, I think he would lose. But the big picture really is, I think if Rayner did stand, I think she would win.
Yeah. Well, everyone seems to conventional wisdom that it's someone on the left who will win. But so why do you say face saving for Wes Streeting? Is it just because everyone's been talking about it? At some point, you've got to do it.
Yes, I think the speculation. I think in terms of the media, but also from the MPs around him, has built up to such a pitch that I think if he doesn't do it, he will look weak, and it could possibly tar any future ambitions. But just to directly answer your question, I think it was who would be worse. I do think Rayner would be worse just because of her lack of, I would say, economic nous. I mean, I know on Talk you talk a lot about the economic situation and welfare being such a huge problem at the moment, vis-a-vis what we are spending. And I think Rayner could lead us to a situation like we had with the IMF in 1976. And, it's quite interesting, actually. I mean, I love history, and we had Jim Callaghan, of course, back then, and he and Rayner are extremely similar in two ways. Number one, they both faced this possible problem of an economic collapse. But number two, they're both the kind of unions pick, aren't they? They're both affiliated with unions, both the kind of keepers of the cloth cap, and it wouldn't surprise me if, with that union backing, she, could become PM, but also
cause mayhem. Michael, thank you. Thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. First time call. That was nice. That was nice. Henry Hill, you were making some facial expressions during that. You're not.
No,
the comparison is fair.
Well, I mean, in as much as they were both the candidates of the unions, yes. Yeah. But actually, Jim Callaghan was well on the right of the Labour Party, right?
That's
and actually,
what I thought.
At the time, the interesting thing about the trade unions, they were obviously economically in favour of nationalisation, but they were a very socially conservative force.
Well,
so it doesn't really map
everyone
onto...
was then. Here's a small random fact. My father worked as a special advisor to the Callaghan government. I know, you didn't see that coming, did you? Anyway, let's go to Gary in Leeds. Hello, Gary. What do you want to say?
Hi, Julie. It's Gary in Harrogate, not Leeds.
Oh, Harrogate. Oh, OK. Sorry about that. I don't know why they think you're in Leeds. But anyway, what do you want to say?
It's me. Wow, what a state the country's in. I mean, this psychodrama we've got with the Labour government, and we've got these two people, Streeting and Rayner. going to be fighting it out, and I just despair. I mean, if you look at the whole view, Julie, we've got 400 MPs, and not one of them is capable enough of raising it up to the bar to be PM. It just horrifies me. And the thought of Rayner getting in, we're going to even tilt further to the left. I mean, the unions are going to support her. We know she's going to be shooing basically. But they're all squabbling. I mean, did you see Kemi yesterday in Parliament?
Yep.
I'm not a Conservative, but she totally owned them yesterday.
Oh, she taught people new backsides yesterday.
She did, especially Lady Nugent, which was hilarious.
Yeah, our good friend Emily Thornberry.
Yeah, but it doesn't fill me or anybody I know with great fervour thinking of the choices we've got. Yeah. I mean, Labour was screaming when the psychodramas, they called it, with Boris. You know, you need to step down, Boris. They said it time after time after time at the dispatch box. That's what they need to do. The country's in a complete and utter mess.
Yep.
100 Labour MPs have voted against him. Some of the ministers are voting against him.
Well, not voting, but they're speaking out against.
Yeah, speaking out against him. We just need a general election because whoever comes in will not have a mandate. That's what Labour kept saying, Julia.
They did say that. I disagree with them then, and I disagree with people saying that now. I tell you what, I don't think either the Tories or Reform Party want a general election right now. I don't think that would work out very well for them.
Why is that?
Because they're not ready. They're simply not ready. If you look where Tories are in the polling, even with Reform, I think especially with the Greens still. I mean, I think the Greens are a busted flush, but I think they need to be a bit more busted. I don't think. I mean, I can tell you right now, Reform are not ready to form a government.
Right, because you speak to Nigel and Zia, and they say that we've got the numbers there. We're ready to govern. You call an election, we're ready.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know all their policies. They haven't even got spokespeople yet. I mean, I've got no problem with them, getting to this over the next couple of years. I'm just saying they are not ready to form a government yet.
No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Anyway, look, that's a fantastic call, Gary. In Harrogate, thank you very much indeed. Great call. Let's go and take a quick break right now. Up next, going to talk to former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards. The plot is thickening at Westminster. Will Wes Streeting announce in the next, we're told this morning, in the next half hour at some point during the show? Will Angela Rayner follow suit? Will Al Khan's? Who knows what is going to happen? Certainly reports that a bunch of cabinet ministers are going to the Prime Minister saying, we no longer have faith in you. That has now been poo-pooed by some people close to those cabinet ministers, saying that's not going to happen. It sounds to me like an awful lot of people are briefing who may not actually be sure of their facts. We'll keep you posted on what everyone's saying there. Can't wait to hear what you have to say as well. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:36 is the time. Well, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping are attending a state banquet in Beijing right at this moment after a 2-hour meeting. It was supposed to have only lasted an hour. Ended up lasting 2 hours. These things often do. But we'll keep you up to date on any developments out of that major summit. Right now, let's talk about what the hell's going on in Westminster. Let's ask Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor, what he thinks is going on. Good morning, Paul.
Hi there, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Well, look, I mean, we've been pretty sure there's going to be a leadership bid some point this week. I thought it was going to come soon. A lot of people did. A lot of accusations that Wes Streeting in particular bottled it. Question marks about whether Angela Rayner was able to stand with the HMRC investigation hanging over. That has miraculously disappeared this morning. What amazing timing. And of course, Andy Burnham apparently has been racing around after running down to London a couple of days ago to find a candidate in Manchester who will, well, an MP in Manchester who will hand over a safe seat to him if such a thing exists. It does look like we are going to get that leadership bid. Who do you think will stand, and who do you think's got the best chance?
I mean, I feel I should start with an apology to the British people, really, for the absolutely unedifying pantomime that we've all had to endure for the last 72 hours. I fear, though, off the back of your question, it's only going to get worse now, because it does feel like the leadership camps are forming. It seems more likely than not that Wes will fire the starting pistol. You mentioned just before the break there the magic name Al Keynes, and I think he's the real dark horse in this. He's a fascinating character, a brigadier in the Royal Marines, decorated officer, 5 tours of Afghanistan. He might come out of nowhere and surprise us all. Angela's obviously on manoeuvres now that she thinks she's exonerated. Not sure if the public see it quite like that. And Ed Miliband, for heaven's sake. I mean, you know, is that really the answer to the question being posed? I'm not sure. So it really is all up to play. But, you know, as things absolutely stand right now, we're staring at a door with God knows what going on behind it. But there's no leadership contender actually come forward yet.
No, and again, we keep being told any moment now. And you can understand the situation just ahead of the King's speech. People will get, loyal patriots will say get a bit cross if there was a leadership bid just before the King was delivering the state opening of Parliament address. You know that there's an argument for that. But if Wes Streeting doesn't go today, people will say that he has bottled it. And certainly the Prime Minister had something of a spring in his step yesterday. I thought he was looking rather pleased with himself. Seemed to think that he may well have sort of, managed to do enough of a fight back. A lot of reports today about cabinet ministers going into the Prime Minister, not going into the Prime Minister. Some of those loyal MPs who apparently signed this letter saying they support the Prime Minister now saying, oh, I don't. But it does seem to be quite feverish. Is this down to any sort of big political ideological battle or philosophy, or is this just, can we find someone who can keep our seats? Is that all it's about?
I mean, I think it comes down to the Labour Party's constitution, which is that before the last election, we made it quite hard to get rid of a sitting Prime Minister.
Deliberately?
And it's not that. Yeah, absolutely. To make it so that you can't just have chopping and changing. So that 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party was a figure that was put up from the Corbyn days, so that you couldn't have these spurious contests. And of course, what that means is that although Wes has got a lot of support and is an absolute class act, he doesn't necessarily have 81 colleagues that would back him, because plenty of people think, well, we should play along and wait for Andy Burnham to come riding over the hill, or we support another candidate from the soft left, whatever it might be. So when I was around, you and I were around talking about Blair and Brown, the TPGBs. There was an obvious successor to Blair in the shape of Gordon Brown. Everyone knew it, and it was just a matter of when. Now there is no obvious successor to Starmer. Plus, Starmer has dug his heels in. I agree. I think he looks in a stronger position yesterday than he had done for several weeks, because he's obviously faced down his critics. And for all of the people that say he's terrible, and plenty of people will be phoning in now to say that, he is the Prime Minister somehow. He's managed to stay there for 2 years. He's obviously made of quite tough stuff. And if he refuses to just say, yeah, I'm off, then there's nothing in the Constitution that means that he can be got rid of. There aren't any men in grey suits. There is no 1922 committee in the Labour Party, it's 81 names on a list saying, I want you to be leader. And nobody has that right now. Now, in 20 minutes
we don't
from
know.
now, Julia,
no one has publicly said that.
In 20 minutes from now, everything may have changed,
yeah.
and we'll all be back debating the new Labour leadership.
I mean, the timing of timing of Angela Rayner coming out with that interview and telling everybody that she's been cleared by HMRC. Word is that actually happened a couple of months ago. Choosing to do it now, I think, is very, very telling, is it not? And perhaps also how cunning, if she was supporting Andy Burnham getting back into Parliament, and if it all happens now and Andy Burnham can't get back into Parliament quick enough, well, she would have supported him, so can I have his supporters now, please? I mean, she's wily. A lot of people are very critical of her in terms of her intelligence. She may not be very, academically educated, but she's a wily old thing. She knows what she's doing. Here's the thing. You mentioned about her tax. You seem to be a little bit, shall we say, sceptical about her tax situation and in terms of how that will play out with the public, because whether or not HMRC have decided that actually she did nothing wrong, and I think there's big question marks about that. Is she giving us the full picture? Is she going to publish some documents saying that? HMRC can't, but will we find out another way? Or, question mark is, will the public say, oh, well, that's fine then. You didn't pay 40 grand of tax that you were due. You didn't get the correct tax advice and you were the housing secretary at the time. Well, a lot of people actually on the doorstep's going to be saying, I don't like the sound of it. It smells bad.
Well, again, I don't want to hark back to the past, but it does remind me a little bit of the expenses scandal, where MPs were saying, we followed the letter of the law. We've done nothing wrong. Yeah. But that didn't seem to matter because of how it smelt. It was just the smell test, and people went, what the hell? And the numbers were so huge as well. I mean, who's got 40 grand in their back pocket just to repay HMRC? These kinds of things, I'm afraid, she's a great politician, as you've alluded to. She gets a lot of grief and a lot of snobbery.
Yeah.
And she is a bit of a breath of fresh air in our politics. But I think it will hang around her head, even though the story moved on.
I just think for an awful lot of voters, the whole, wasn't she got a great backstory? Hasn't she pulled herself up by her bootstraps? All credit to her and all of that. At the end of the day, voters care about their own lives and them getting on and their kids getting on, and not about what Angie has done or not, and her buying 800 grand, shag pads in Brighton, frankly, which is, let's face it, what we're talking about.
Well, I think it was Hove, actually.
Hove, Brighton and Hove. I mean, OK, everyone from Hove's going to get cross with me.
Well, they will. But I mean, the bigger point surely is, though, be careful what you wish for. And if this opens up a contest, if Wes, declares in half an hour, we might end up with Ed Miliband as our Prime Minister. You have to be ever so careful what you wish for with these things, because the Labour Party, if it gets a vote, will tend to go soft left. We saw that with the deputy leadership contest earlier in the year. And, you may not end up with what you want. And I just think it's really dangerous. The public, as I started with an apology, I think the public are looking at us just scratching their heads going, what the hell are you doing? What about my potholes?
Well, exactly. It's very interesting. I think one thing that will actually mean that we're more likely to get a West Street announcement today is the NHS just listed given their latest waiting list figures. I haven't seen the exact numbers yet, but the biggest fall in 17 years. How
Absolutely.
Convenient.
And he will go to a podium somewhere soon, I'm sure, and point this out very loudly. He will say he's reforming, radical, modernising Labour voice who can win back Labour support.
Yeah.
So
and the NHS is still in the top 3 or 4 of people's concerns after immigration, after cost of living and immigration.
Absolutely,
in particular.
And quite right too. So that's his thing. It's our national religion, as somebody once described it, and he'll go in saying, "I'm a reformer. Look what I've delivered in government." So that'll be his shtick in very short while, I'm sure.
Can we talk about Andy Burnham? And everyone's saying, he's the king of the north, he's the king over the water. Get him back down. He was blocked last time by the NEC. Let's face it, on the instructions of the Prime Minister, from standing down from being Mayor of Greater Manchester to run for seat at the Gorton Denton by-election. And a lot of people say, well, actually, Labour could have won it with him. He's a very, very popular figure. He now, we are told, has found an MP. We've been told this for quite some time, but an MP in the form of Afzal Khan, MP for Manchester Rusholme, that he would be willing to stand down, opening up a by-election opportunity for Andy Burnham to get permission from the NEC to stand. Of course, got to get that permission, got to stand, and then got to win. Apparently it's a safe Labour seat. Do you think such a thing exists anymore?
No, I don't. And I think the voting figures from Greater Manchester in the local elections show a turquoise surge, actually, as well as to the Greens. So it would be a hard one for anyone to win. And I think the danger for Andy, who is, again, brilliant and doing a fantastic job in Manchester, is that people will say, well, you're supposed to be on our side and you're just using this seat as a platform to get down to Westminster because you want to be the Prime Minister. And voters do not like being taken for granted like that. There's no sort of tied kind of loyalist tribal Labour vote anymore. People shop around even in Rusholme and bits of Manchester that he might have an eye on. And I just don't think it would work as a plan. Then the NEC, you see, the argument last time was if you trigger a by-election for the mayoralty of Manchester, you're handing Greater Manchester to Reform.
Yeah, which is a much bigger price to pay.
That would be, in our view, a disaster. And the NEC's position should be the same because it's the same situation exists now as then, right?
I'd say rather justifiable position from number 10, which you stood for. You chose to leave Parliament. You chose to stand for the mayoralty. You said you would stand for you serve the full 5 years. On all his own decisions, his own words. That's the deal. If you had to make a prediction, what is going to happen by the end of the week? Do you think we have a leadership election, and who do you think the candidates are?
Well, it's really hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure now I think Wes Streeting will declare. Whatever that conversation before the King's speech will come out, and I suspect it was either him being told put up or shut up, or him telling the Prime Minister, sorry, mate, but I'm going to go for it.
Is Angie Rayner going to stand?
Well, I'm not sure about that because I think a lot of them,
Ed
Miliband. Well, possibly. I just think they like to have their names in the frame, don't they? So even if they don't stand, they like to be talked of, as we are now, in the frame because it helps them get promotion afterwards from whoever the new leader is.
Very fair point.
But Al Cairns, he's the one to watch.
A lot of people are saying that. Paul Richards, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Former Labour Special Advisor. Henry Hill, political editor, critic. I know you actually couldn't hear some of that interview, so I won't ask about what you had to say, but it's interesting. Those NHS waiting list figures coming out. It's the biggest cutting waiting list in a single month in 17 years, down from 7.22 million at the end of February to 7.11 million treatments, down 110,000. I've got to be honest with you. If this is what we're cheering on almost 2 years into a Labour government, that we've only got 7.11 million people waiting on the NHS. I mean, I've got an elderly relative who's had to pay for a hip hop and a knee op on privately because the wait even to get on the list was months and months long before you even got on the list to actually then wait for your operation. I mean, really? Is that well done. I mean, it's better than going in the wrong direction, but come on.
Well, I mean, the other thing to make sure that people understand about this is that this does not mean that they have simply done a whole bunch of operations and reduced the overall amount by this, right? They have been paying the NHS to go through the list, take off people who have died or no longer...
Well, no, they write to people and say, do you still want to be on this list? And if you don't reply, you're off the list.
Which, again, is can you imagine if you just missed that letter and all of a sudden you're at the back of this queue? But I think sometimes when people say NHS waiting lists are down, what they're hoping is that voters think, we've done a whole load of operations, we've cured some people. That's not what this is.
Well, actually, often realistically, people have died while waiting for their operations. 11:49 is the time. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back with James Mathewson. This is Talk. breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
This is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, to me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:53 is the time. Let's go to another former Labour Party spokesman, left the Labour Party altogether now, political commentator James Mathewson, who joins us to talk about, well, the leadership election in the Labour Party that isn't yet happening, but may well happen. We expect to happen. We don't even know who the runners and riders will be just yet, but the rumours are swirling around Westminster, but they have been for some days. James, do you think it's going to happen today?
Well, firstly, Julia, this is chaos, isn't it? And you could at least pretend to disguise some of your joy and excitement at this. You're positively glowing this morning.
I have been awake.
But what I must say is that I got a text yesterday while I was live on Sky News, and it said from somebody in Wes Streeton's camp, it said, tomorrow will be W Day. Your interpretation for what that W stands for, I think they meant it to stand for Wes. I would suggest it stands for something else that I can't repeat. But basically, I've just texted him again and said, what's happening? Where's W Day? And he's gone quiet. He's read the message and not responded. So you know who you are if you're watching, but I just don't know what's happening right now.
Has he got the numbers? Is there a question mark? He needs to be saying 81, but they need 80, including them. Presumably they support their bid, one would expect. I mean, to actually trigger. Everyone seems to be saying, like, well, we're not sure that Keir Starmer's up to the job, but it would be chaotic, but also we don't want to be the one who triggers that whole idea. He who wields the sword never wears the crown.
Yeah, but there's also this fact, isn't there, that yes, Keir Starmer is bad and yes, Keir Starmer should go, but does that mean Wes Streeting should be Prime Minister? I don't think so.
From your tone of voice, why? Why not Wes Streeting?
I think Wes is a kind of valueless, opportunistic individual. I've been around and known of Wes for years, and nobody on my side of politics has any respect for Wes. There are people who like him personally. That's fine. I don't know him personally, but I do not think he is what the country needs, because he is very much that kind of, goes with the flow, will blow in whatever direction is the strongest.
Couldn't the same be said about Andy Burnham? He was called Flip-Flop Andy. He stood and failed to get the leadership twice in the past. He was regarded as a staunch Blairite, and then suddenly he sort of remodelled himself as a man of the left, a man of the people.
Yeah, when he went away back up to Manchester and kind of remodeled himself, it was interesting, because you got to remember he was on the ballot with the Jeremy Corbyn challenge. Leadership challenge, with some other figures as well. So he was very much presented as a Blairite then. Now he's kind of remodels himself as this kind of cool polo shirt wearing Manchester mayor. So, but he does have cut through, and he has communication ability.
I mean, even if it was just the same policies, but instead of Keir Starmer, it was Andy Burnham fronting them, the party would do better. What do you make of Angela Rayner and her chances? I mean, because she certainly is not ruling it out.
Yeah, I've long supported Angie, and we've talked about that before. The thing is, right, it might not be the direction you want the country to go in, Julia, but Angela would take the country in a direction, and that's what we're lacking right now. There's no direction, there's no rudder, there's no narrative. Angela knows what she wants to do with government if she's in it. And her background and her lived experience informs that as well, unlike Keir Starmer's. So I do think she would be different. She would be able to do that. She would have my support. Whether or not she's able to get the PLP support, though.
That's the Parliamentary Labour Party, except, of course, we do know there's a lot of left-wing backbenchers, and certainly to get on the ballot just for the party members, she would be a very, very popular figure, although there are all these concerns that actually an awful lot of voters, and including Labour Party members, not very happy about this unpaid stamp duty that's now being paid. But, she was the one who had to resign.
Listen, on that, right, I would tell her, forget about it. It's done. It's dusted. It's gone. Own it. Just own it and move on from it, right? Listen, the president
Voters have a habit of not moving on, though.
I know, but the president of the United States is a convicted criminal with 34 felonies against his name, right? We're in a different age of politics.
We are not America. I mean, just finally, what about Ed Miliband? Or Al Carnes?
I can't believe we're talking about. I like Ed as a person. I think he's good. I can't believe we're talking about potentially. This is where a Labour Party 2 years into a huge majority government is. It's talking about reappointing a former leader who lost a general election. Are we insane? Madness.
Yes. I mean, the fact that he's even in the cabinet, I would say insane. You said this, but Angela Rayner would actually at least have the direction she wants to take the country in. The reality is, though, is that the direction that the general public want? Is it the direction that the bond markets would put up with?
Well, bond markets, not so much, I don't think. But you have to rely on people who have those relationships with financial markets. For example, the smartest thing Angela Rayner could do if she got this, right? She was leader, she was prime minister, is appoint somebody like Darren Jones to be the chancellor, right? Who has those relationships, who's able to do that. It's about collaboration. People like Harold Wilson did it best, right? Bring your enemies into your cabinet. Barack Obama did the same as Team of Rivals, as it was called. That's how you need to operate with this. Wow. Angela's smart enough to do that. Keir Starmer hasn't been.
That is certainly true. James Mathewson, really interesting analysis. Their political commentator there, James Mathewson. Just let you know that Downing Street has said that the statement, Wes Streeting remains the Health Secretary and the Prime Minister still has confidence in him. As of now, Streeting remains in post as a Health Secretary. He retains Sir Keir Starmer's confidence, his official spokesman has said. Asked whether the Prime Minister is proud of the Health Secretary's work in government, especially given these new these waiting list figures, which I'm sorry, I mean, they're marginally better than the terrible results they were a month ago. Thanks to decisions taken by the government, we have opened up millions more appointments in the NHS. Just very interesting there, Henry Hill, about that. I mean, we're still waiting. I mean, are we going to have a whole other day of are we or are we not going to get a leadership election? I mean, who knows what is going on? There certainly seems to be an expectation, it's got to happen today or it doesn't happen. Is everyone just going to sit and wait for Andy Burnham to find the mythical, the much fabled safe Labour seat to get back into power? And how much better would Andy Burnham be? I have a funny feeling his poll ratings would be as bad as Keir Starmer's within a few months because of, reality and facts. So much more to talk about, lots more. I can't wait to get more of your calls on air as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much indeed for your company, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry to disappoint, but many of us were expecting that we were going to have a leadership challenge announced by Wes Streeting before now. Tumbleweed. No, hasn't happened yet. Rumours are swirling around Westminster, just down the road, about whether or not Wes Streeting is going to go for it. Has he got the 80 MPs to back him, which he needs for a leadership contest? Certainly after that 16-minute meeting, 60 minutes from inside the door to outside the door yesterday with the Prime Minister. It doesn't look like the relations between Wes Streeting and the Prime Minister are going very well. Expectation is that he was going to announce today. Will he, won't he? Things seem to have gone a little bit quiet. Talk that a number of cabinet ministers were going to see the Prime Minister today and say, your time is up, set a timetable for your departure. We've had Angela Rayner claiming that she has been cleared by HMRC over that £40,000 unpaid stamp duty on her flat on the south coast. She's now paid that money back, but a lot of confusion, even from tax experts, about how she was found not to have committed any wrongdoing there. But we've got Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor. He apparently has got an MP, the Manchester Rusholme MP, Afzal Khan, willing to stand aside, give up his seat and his £90,000 plus salary to create a by-election for Andy Burnham to stand in. Of course, it involved the NEC agreeing to let him stand. Why would they change their mind after last time, allowing a big by-election in the Manchester mayoralty as well, likely to fall to reform in that case? And even if he did come back in, well, would everyone wait that long for a leadership election for him to stand? Or will it all be over and done with? Could Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, could he be standing? Could he be our next Chancellor? God forbid, on both counts. What about Al Khan's, as everyone's saying, the dark horse, the ex-commando, ex-Royal Marine, who is currently a Defence Minister? Could he be standing? Certainly, he has made it very clear. He's very open to it. But where are we right now? Well, no one is yet bidding for the top job. And the Prime Minister certainly had something of a spring in his step yesterday in Parliament, did he not, after the state opening of Parliament, suggesting he thought that he'd seen everyone off. Well, joining me right now in the studio, I'd like to say still, is political editor of The Critic, Henry Hill. In just a couple of moments, we'll talk to Conservative peer Lord Elliott. But Henry Hill, I mean, you've been discussing this all day. I mean, we were basically expecting this to have happened by now. It hasn't happened. There was an expectation that certainly Wes Streeting would have gone a couple of days ago. Understandable not to launch your leadership in on the day of the King's speech, the state opening of Parliament. You get criticised for that, for embarrassing the King and the like, by patriots, just unseemly. But the expectation was, well, he was going to go today. If he doesn't, will he just be regarded as bottling it? Is this his one and only chance?
Yeah, this is doing him enormous damage, right? Because the best answer I can come up with, given what we were hearing, is that he's lost some of the numbers, right? Maybe we were talking earlier about the fact that Angela Rayner is suddenly on the scene when she wasn't 24 hours ago. Can you imagine how excruciating it would be if he had his 80 MPs and even 5 of them had defected and now he's down below the threshold?
Well, is that why she suddenly appeared, given that many people believe that she actually had this HMRC decision quite some time ago?
I mean, potentially, but because you want to strike decisively, right? It's already weird that he announced it for days and then didn't do it. But the fact that we're all now sitting here and Labour MPs are watching this, right? Like, this does not seem like the kind of leader who you want, who will act decisively.
Well, exactly. If the thing you're criticising Keir Starmer for is he's sort of just not a decisive man, he's not leading the country. Well, this is not showing leadership. It's absolutely fascinating. Love to hear your thoughts. Get in touch. In particular, who would be worse for Britain? Whether it's Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, whether it's Keir Starmer, whether it's Ed Miliband, Andy Burnham, you name it. Get in touch. Who would be worse for Britain? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. This, as I say, calls are charged at the national rate and text costs £1 standard network rate message. Right now, let's go to my first guest in this hour, Lord Elliott. He's a Conservative peer, and Matthew Elliott, of course, helped lead the Leave campaign for Brexit, and he's also now a political strategist. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. You've done some political strategising in your time. What do you think the strategy is behind Wes Streeting not having announced yet?
I find it confusing. It could be a situation a bit like David Miliband back in the day when he was talked up as being a future leader and then didn't make the move, and forever we're known as a guy who walked out of conference with a banana one day rather than being a sort of prime minister. So I think Wes Streeting does actually have to make the move now.
I mean, there really is put up or shut up time. The Prime Minister is certainly seeming to be saying that. From what you're hearing, I know you're around Westminster, so you're a peer. Why do you think that everyone is sort of taking so long, given the expectation with poor results in those local Welsh and Scottish elections on Thursday, results over the weekend, clear anger on the doorsteps, clear concern that Keir Starmer is one of the most unpopular leaders ever in this country, that he can't take the party into the next election. 11 unions saying, who are affiliated Labour, saying, look, you're going to have to go. Cabinet ministers making it known, they've told him privately. What is taking everyone so long?
I think you're right to say it's moved beyond being about if it's going to happen to being when it's going to happen. So it's when in the next few hours, days, weeks, it will actually kick off. One thing that came through really clearly yesterday during the day of the King's speech was actually how there's a certain amount of paralysis in the government. Where's their big vision for the country? Where's the vision when it comes to really getting the economy powering again, getting more prosperity for people? That doesn't seem to be coming through. And that drift, that sense of uncertainty, isn't good for the country.
No, absolutely. And again, any sort of stability tends to be better than no stability. I know you've been involved with a lot of people in the city over the years. Big concerns about the bond markets and about the future of this country's economy. We're constantly being told by those who fought against Brexit that Brexit's been the biggest hit on our finances. We know, of course, we've had the way before that we had the economic crash we were still paying for. We had lockdown and basically bailing everyone out. Their energy bills post-Ukraine. We've got the Iran conflict right now. And now the Prime Minister is talking an awful lot about it, and certainly involved in the King's speech, about basically taking us back into Europe, not breaching those red lines, he says, of rejoining the customs union or the single market. But he seems to think that the answer to all of our economic woes is getting closer to Europe. What do you make of that?
That's certainly not the answer to our woes. I would actually point to the fact that if you look at the growth figures today, which were better than some people thought they would be, a lot of that economic growth in the country is coming from, for example, the tech sector. Now, the tech sector of the UK really benefits from the fact we're outside of the EU's AI laws. So actually moving close to the EU, rejoining those laws, would be bad for us. And let's think about a few other things as well. Ed Miliband is talking about completely banning exploration of North Sea oil and gas. That would hit the economy. There's flirtation amongst some Labour MPs about going down the route led by the Green Party and the SNP of having a wealth tax. That would hit the economy. So what we need is a real plan for growth.
Well, indeed. I mean, it doesn't appear that there is a plan for growth because we certainly aren't seeing any growth. In terms of that 0.6% increase in GDP, this is being hailed by, Labour, by Rachel Reeves. She's been out on the out with the reporters in Downing Street, sort of saying, this is, what great news this is. Is 0.6% growth looking internationally? Is that a good news figure?
It's not looking great internationally. And actually, if you look back at the GDP figures over time, often in the first quarter of the year, they do tend to be higher, then they tail off towards the end of the year. And I suspect we'll see that this year as well with for example, the minimum wage increases have just piled on. had some extra taxes in recent months as well, with those going up. That will feed through to low growth figures, I fear, towards the end of the year.
Now, you're a Conservative peer, and certainly the Conservatives have really been battered in the local elections as well. That's one thing that Keir Starmer said yesterday. Kemi Badenoch didn't seem to have noticed that, and certainly there's not been much focus on that, given Labour did so badly, and Reform, of course, doing so well. There's been a lot of question marks over donors to the Reform Party, particularly Christopher Hobborn, a crypto billionaire who's given some £20+ million to Nigel Farage, Reform and the Brexit Party previously over the years, very publicly. But he also gave a £5 million donation to him personally in the beginning of 2024, which Nigel Farage chose not to register when he became an MP later, saying it was given to him before he was just thinking of going back to stand for office, and it was a personal donation in relation to his own personal security, which costs, we know, high up, hundreds of thousands every year. It's just been, well, we knew yesterday that he's now facing a parliamentary investigation over that donation, whether or not he should have declared it, and that could, if found to, it's a declaration he should have made. It certainly was within the year when, if there was any question about a donation or gift or benefit in kind, that you should declare it. If that's the case, he could face, the possibility of being suspended from Parliament, a possible recall petition in his own constituency. But it's also just been revealed in the news that whether this is related or not, we don't know, but that immediately after that £5 million personal gift in 2024, he bought with cash a property worth £1.4 million. Now, whether that's related, whether there is, that's not, what's your response to that as a Conservative peer?
We'll have to see what the result of the investigation is. I must say, though, it really does concern me that the fact that the government hasn't provided him with personal security. He is doing extremely well in the polls. He is positioned to be possibly our next Prime Minister. He's doing very well at the moment. Why isn't he being given that protection by the Met, by people responsible for this, that he should be getting? So I hope the government looks at that so he doesn't have to go to his friends to borrow money to pay for security. Yeah, I mean, this is certainly the thing, and we know the huge amount of security he is required to need. In terms of where things go now, there's no doubt at all. Your leader, Kemi Badenoch, she did absolute blinder in Parliament yesterday. She's definitely performing at a much higher level. She's polling way above her party at the moment. Many of you know her position to now be safe. In terms of where we go right now in terms of British politics, we're told, that it's the end of the two-party era. That's all changed. But we heard that back in 2010. We heard that back in 2019 as well. Things keep changing and changing massively. Now, you were part of one of the biggest changes, which was that vote for Brexit. You were a key part of that campaign. What do you think is going to happen in the next few years? Well, I'm afraid to say, I think the next election could be almost like a rerun of the Brexit referendum. So, of course, on one side, you'll have the Conservatives and the Reform Party saying we should stay outside of the EU and also make the most of the opportunities we get from being outside of the EU. And then on the left side, you have a variety of things from Labour, Lib Dems, Greens, SNP, saying either rejoin perhaps the customs union or the single market or rejoin entirely. So I think we're going to be in for a few years of that Brexit debate again. Yeah. And I hope that actually both the Conservatives and Reform actually really seize the opportunity and say, look, with these Brexit powers, this is what we can do for the country. This is how we can really drive prosperity.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? Polling has been very clear that an awful lot of people who voted for Brexit, I've yet to meet one of them, to be fair, regrets their vote. I've genuinely never met anyone who the reaction of the EU to what happened that vote has absolutely convinced me that, my goodness me, we were right to do it. And a lot of us expected that the benefits would take a while to come good. But there has been a general view that, the governments have not capitalised it. Like, if we wanted to take back control of our borders, Boris Johnson and the Boris wave did the exact opposite of that. And a total betrayal on that front, I believe. But in terms of also just freeing us up, trade deals and just zooming ahead and dropping a load of that dead regulation from the EU. Well, we've not done that either. When people say that, look, you know, and the government seems to think, we're just going to take us back in, just sort of gently back in without anyone noticing. And then people all say, well, we may as well be in at the table making the rules instead of being a rule taker. We'll be a rule maker. Do you think there is any route back for us to be back in the EU?
Well, in some ways, I actually like the honesty of the Liberal Democrats when they say, let's rejoin and let's have that honest debate if they want to have that. I like that honesty. But if that debate was really had and then people realise, actually, were we to rejoin, we'd have to repay the membership fee of about £28 billion a year at current rates. We wouldn't have the rebate that we used to have. We may even have to rejoin the euro or join the euro.
Well,
rather,
under the EU rules, you would have to join the euro,
Yes. So all these other things, I think that once people start thinking about this, there'd be zero appetite to actually rejoin the EU.
Oh, I'm very much with you. EU referendum, bring it on. Let's play. We'll get the band back together. Lord Elliott, lovely to talk to you, Conservative peer and political strategist. Thank you so much for joining us. Henry Hill, your thoughts on that? Because it is interesting that Keir Starmer seemed to think during his King's speech and in lots of the speeches he's given, including in that 50 millionth recess speech he gave on Monday morning, which was very much greeted by the country with, was that it? He seems to think that taking us back into closer ties with the EU is the issue that's going to keep him in power and improve Britain's future.
The weird thing about that, though, is that I obviously disagree with the people who say that you will get a big economic fillip from going back into the European Union, because we had a terrible economy for 10 years before we left, from the crash onwards, right? Like, honestly, going back in now is doing what Brexit was doing for some Brexiteers before we left, which is it allows them to ignore the amount of Britain's problems that are down to their own decisions and the domestic economy. But the thing is, if he is a true believer in Europe, and there's not much sign that he's a true believer in anything else, why isn't he trying to make the case for the customs union or the single market? I'd oppose him, but if he'd stood up the other day and been like, I think that we absolutely essential to growth that we go into Europe, and therefore I'm doing the... I'd have fought him. Except
that would be breaching the manifesto commitment, but then he's breached plenty of other aspects.
But genuinely, he could at least try and make the case. But instead, he's like, we need to go into the heart of Europe. I'm changing none of my red lines. We're going to do something on SBS, you know, food and phytosanitary. It's bizarre.
It is. The whole thing is very bizarre. Not as bizarre as, are we or aren't we getting it?
Where's the helicopter over his house? I feel like that's the classic news thing.
One of my biggest gripes is whenever there's any big occasion, state occasion, where having the helicopters. So with the Prime Minister who goes, goes to the King or the Queen and says, when you form a government, and then they come back, you've got people shouting outside the gates, and then with a loud hailer playing music, and you've got a helicopter overhead, and you can't hear the first thing that the new Prime Minister says. Whether you voted for them or not, I feel the same way. I think it's just demeaning for our democracy. I really, really do. And I really don't get excited about watching, the sort of, the helicopter, watching a car go down the street. Also, I've got the same view on how long is mainstream media going to have pictures of a plane that's landed? And then, really, for the love of God.
I once had to commentate with somebody else 40 minutes of the American president's Jeep driving to an airport in Ireland.
Yeah, been there.
Excruciating.
Been there, absolutely. Look, we'll get to your calls. We won't be wasting any time on that nonsense. We'll be getting to your calls up next. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call to have your say. Get in touch about this leadership. Anything else? And I say also these details that have just emerged, that Nigel Farage bought a £1.4 million property in cash. He completed the house purchase in May 2024, weeks before he changed his decision to stand in the general election of that year. But he'd been given that donation earlier, a £5 million donation from Christopher Harborne, the cryptocurrency billionaire, weeks earlier than that. Obviously, that's currently being investigated by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. So there are going to be some question marks about this. If that was money for security, your personal security, does that necessarily help explain the decision not to register that? But the thing is, Christopher Harborne has given him plenty of money to the parties he's represented very openly. But I'm sorry, whatever the person is, whether it's a friend or someone I politically support, whether I hate them, whether I don't support them, I don't want billionaires having any say in how our country is run, over and above any ordinary person being able to have their influence. And I don't believe that people give you £5 million without expecting something in return. I don't think people who get very, very rich do that. I'm old-fashioned like that. I've got questions to ask, and I would love Nigel Farage to come on and answer them. I really, really would. I'm giving benefit of the doubt, but I'm sorry. I'm equal opportunities on this stuff. I want money out of our politics on every party in every way. And this does not...
Taxpayer funding?
Yes, I've said that, yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's what we have to do. I think it's better for us long run. This does not, right now, pass the smell test, I'm afraid, Nigel Farage. It does not. And you're going to have to give us some public information very, very quickly if you want this to go away, because otherwise I think people are reasonable to say it does not smell right. 12:21 is the time. Love to hear your calls on everything we're talking about. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk. Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
This is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, approaching 12:25. Let's go straight to your calls, 0344 499 1000 on this, well, you know, this Labour leadership that isn't yet happening. David is in North London. Hello, David, what do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. Love to speak to you.
Love to speak to you.
So, you know, everyone remembers before the election, which I think Labour now actually need to call a new election, because their main premise of everything was policy this and that, but ultimately the adults are back in the room, the adults are back in charge, psychodrama's over. As Andrew Marr put it so accurately, you know, Britain is now a haven of peace and stability, and everything's going wonderfully well. And in terms of these this leadership contest, I mean, to be honest, I really think it's like choosing between syphilis and chlamydia between their
we keep getting these candidates.
And I mean, I was going to say HIV and cancer, but I thought that was a bit unfair. But I mean, ultimately, Keir Starmer at the moment, with all these people coming out and saying things about him and this one's going to be a leader, this or not. People know what's going to happen. And Keir Starmer really now, he just resembles, what I can only describe as a man watching his wife have 100 affairs with 100 men, and Keir Starmer sitting there smiling with a ball gag in his mouth.
Oh, good Lord, there's an image there is an image there. I have to say, wow. We went there, David. I've seen, for me, I just think his whole shtick is, yeah, I'm rubbish, and the voters hate me, and I'm rubbish at what I do. But look how much worse this lot would be. And I think that's really telling, especially given that a lot of these people are people he appointed to his own cabinet.
I mean, I think he still believes in himself. I actually think Keir Starmer is that deluded.
Yeah,
and I think the Labour Party are also, I think, actually even more deluded, because at least Keir Starmer can say, well, people didn't really vote for him, but he won the election fair and square, as much as we might not like it. And ultimately, he can sit on that. And I think that is something that is very true. As the rest of the Labour Party, be it Wes Streeting or Angela Rayner, who has found 40,000. I wish I knew how she did that. All these.
Oh, she's got money in the bank. She did, when she left as Prime Minister deputy to the party, she went off and did a whole load of speeches. They're all in favour of their MPs not having second jobs. She went off, did loads of big speeches. She was getting, 10, 20, 30k at a time. I think 50k donations here and there as well. She's got plenty of money.
Well, I mean, ultimately, again, she's a real lady of the people there. But really, what's happening here is that they're all lining up saying, no, we want power. Keir Starmer used his little shtick of, I'm, a sensible man with a Lego haircut and a suit, and I'll win the election for that reason. He won the election by not being conservative. And now they're essentially just piggybacking off that, because I don't think the electorate will actually vote for Angela Rayner, for Wes Streeting, for Andy Burnham. Again, is just Keir Starmer with a northern accent and a worse haircut. It's just...
and a black T-shirt. David, thank you very much indeed. That's David in North London. We've got another David. He's in Rotherham. Hello, David. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon, Julia.
Afternoon.
Two things, if I may.
Yeah.
You've got 100 MPs backing the Prime Minister who won't put the names forward, simply because they're in jobs that they've never envisaged getting in their lives, where they would be earning £100,000 a year plus expenses, because they're never, ever going to get that again.
Yeah.
And the other thing, having watched the opening of Parliament yesterday, you saw Rachel from Accounts going out in a pink suit that looked like a sack, not a bag, a sack. Yeah. So what Labour should do is tidy them up, some of them women up, because they need a hairdresser, they need a...
now, do you know what?
Shows them how to dress.
A lot of people say this is...
How to put makeup on.
Yeah, no, a lot of people say this is sex. I don't think it's sex. I think that women say, oh, everyone always talks about what we wear and everything. I'll get comments on my hair or whatever, or, what you get me. Just couldn't care less. But I think people should dress smartly for work. Men are required to wear in the House of Commons chamber a jacket and a tie. Nearly all they're in just their navy suits, white shirt and a tie. It's not that hard. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect women to turn up in equivalent levels of sober, professional clothing. And I do think if you want to wear a bright, a pale pink but very garish suit on the day, people are going to comment on it, and you've chosen to have them comment on your clothes. And if you just wear smart, nothing to talk about clothing, no one will talk about it, and it's really simple. So I'm actually with you on this, because it makes them look... Angie Rayner's as bad, like bright green trouser suits and things like that. It's like, oh, give me a break. You don't look like a Prime Minister in waiting, love.
Those shoes she wore when she went out with the King to some site.
Oh, yeah. DMs or something, wasn't it?
Things. But Rachel yesterday, as soon as she got there, what the hell is she wearing? And if some of them women, there's one who looks as though she's never ever done her hair before she's come out.
I tell you what, David, there'll be a lot of people going, I'd love to see what David looks like. Would you pass muster? Let's get back onto the substance, though, ignoring that side of things. Yeah. But again, looking. That's what the Blair lot did. Looking presentable. It's part of it's like applying for a job. Do you think that Labour MPs want a leadership contest?
No, of course they don't. They want to hang on to what they've got.
Yeah. Okay, David.
They're not going to give them wages up, because they're never ever going to earn that sort of money again in their life.
Yeah, but leadership election doesn't mean they lose their jobs.
Well, there's 140 odd, is it, that are on the government payroll,
Oh, yeah, they get the extra money. They think they might be out of that job. Interesting point. Thank you for that, David. Henry Hill, listening to all of that, we won't go into the Rachel Reeves clothing or hers.
You won't believe how many comments I get about how well
Henry Hill, if you are not watching, if you're not on YouTube, you're not troubled by many visits to the barber. Shall we put it that way?
We'll put it that way. Shave it yourself every couple of days.
Not a big part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Can we come back to Nigel Farage?
Yeah.
This revelation, Sky News, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage bought a £1.4 million property in cash, because you have to register whether it's a mortgage or not, very shortly after receiving a £5 million personal gift from billionaire donor Christopher Harbin. According to property records, the purchase was completed in May 2024. And the spokesperson for Reform has said the offer and process for purchase of this property commenced before the gift. I mean, again, let's face it, anyone who's ever bought a property, even if you not waiting for a mortgage to be agreed, will know that, just the process of getting information from the council that's required and stuff just takes ages and ages and ages. But he's already being the subject of an inquiry by the Parliamentary Standards Commission into whether he broke Commons rules by accepting that £5 million gift, not declaring it, even though it was before he decided to become an MP again and before he became an MP. But the rule is basically up to a year beforehand, anything that not only that was a donation that has any impact, but also something that could be, if there's any doubt, if it could be perceived to be something influencing you, you should declare it. Nigel Farage is very clear. We've had Richard Tice on the show this week being absolutely adamant that he's done nothing wrong, and this investigation will clear it. It's all about his security. If he did buy a £1.4 million property with cash, now he had been earning a heck of a lot of money at GB News. He was on a very, very, very good salary. He may well have had that cash, may well have had that, didn't need a mortgage. Why would you get a mortgage out when the mortgage rates are high, etc., etc.? If you've got the money in a savings, in shares or whatever it was, and you took it out in cash, it's not looking. It's not looking. Should we say, at the best, helpful for Nigel Farage? Is it, or do you think people won't care? Do you love Nigel Farage? You just won't care?
I think with a lot of this stuff, what tends to happen is that people don't care until you hit a sort of tipping point, and then all of a sudden, all of this stuff lands really, really hard.
Yeah.
And you saw this with Boris Johnson. You saw this with the Conservative Party in general. During the Brexit years, there was a meme where Theresa May would lose another Secretary of State every month, and it would be like con +2 because people were just sticking with them. It is definitely unhelpful. I think this also, again, I can't remember when he did it because I saw it referenced this morning, but he did endorse this gentleman's crypto company at some point, right? And so it all does start to look you can't convict, right? And I think that if he does have the receipts and everything else, it does take 5 to 6 months to line up a property sale in this country. But the one that I think is very hard to defend is just thinking that this is not something you have to declare.
Yeah, that's it. Just simply doesn't fly for me at all. Absolutely. Right, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. Up next, we're going to talk to former Met Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville about the policing of these two big rallies, very much diametrically opposed this weekend. And are the police being even-handed? That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Henry Hill is still with me, political editor of The Critic. Delighted to be joined right now by Mike Neville, former Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Inspector in the studio. Very good afternoon to you, sir.
Thank you, Julia.
We haven't really got much to this topic. We've basically been sitting there waiting to have a leadership challenge. But we're going to talk about something which does actually affect people on the ground in this weekend in London. Police have basically announced that we are going to see some 4,000 police and facial recognition cameras used to help with the policing of two rival protests going on this weekend. One, of course, is the Tommy Robinson organised, Stephen Yaxley-led and organised Unite the Kingdom March, the second march. The last one, I think, had about 150,000 people. People often think that there are many more people attending these marches than there are, but huge march. Huge number of people attending it, and only a tiny bit of breakaway trouble at the very, very edges. But also the same day, we also have a pro-Palestinian march marking Nakba Day, and this is Arabic for catastrophe, and refers to 1948 as a displacement, dispossession and ethnic cleansing of some 750,000 Palestinian Arabs during the Arab-Israeli war surrounding Israel's creation. Two rallies going on. A lot of people be very worried. I think a lot of people
and the FA Cup final.
The FA Cup final. Very good point. A lot of people might not be going into central London that day. But here's the thing: the number of police that are being cordoned in, and the sort of different policing of these different rallies. As a former DCI, as someone who's been involved in these sort of decisions, what do you make of what the Met Police are doing?
Well, the first thing that really stands out, and my expertise is catching people with images and faces and facial recognition, is that they've said openly, we're going to deploy this facial recognition system at this Tommy Robinson. And I only found out today it was called Yaxley Lennon.
Really?
No, I'm joking. But they're going to deploy this to that demonstration, but not to the other. And it's the optics of this. Why in God's name would you ever think that was a good idea? Imagine having the two football matches, and we got whoever, I'm a rugby man myself, so whoever's playing, you deploy facial recognition at Man United but not at Man City. It is absolutely crazy. Yes, use these techniques, but use it in an even-handed way, because how many times do we have to be, the words two-tier policing come out, about different styles, when we've got different kind of left-wing demonstrators, right-wing demonstrators, whatever they are, and it just sends a very, very bad message. And it also impacts on the ground that those 4,000 officers, that most of them, they'll be dragged in from their normal beats. They're not policing.
Feel free to shoplift anywhere you want.
Streatham or Tottenham or wherever, Croydon. So they're not policing there, and it's the optics that gets me on.
Well, that's it. I mean, again, the reality of it, and again, we've seen it fortnightly pro-Palestinian marches, and it's interesting, a statement put out in the Met Police last night, which kind of, for the first time, acknowledged that there were people on those marches. I'm sure there are people who genuinely think that they should be marching for the pro-Palestinian cause, but there are also people, and even the Met Police statement admitted, where there are hate marches, there are people who committing anti-Semitism, outrageous statements and banners and chants. What do you think globalise the Intifada means? It means kill Jews around the world. And what a surprise when people try to kill Jews around the world, everyone go, we didn't mean that. No, that is what you meant. And if you don't know what your chant means, from the river to the sea, if you don't know which river or which sea or what that implies, i.e. the destruction of Israel, don't chant it, because you look like an idiot, as a lot of these people do. I worry that far too many people on those marches do know exactly what they're saying, and they think they're the nice people. But this is the thing people have been frustrated by. The riot police are absolutely, the helmets, the shields, they're all out and about at the last Unite the Kingdom rally. I know loads of people who went on that who absolutely cannot be described as far right or bigot. People of many different ethnic backgrounds, people who are immigrants, many people taking their families, taking their young children, and to absolutely ordinary people who just want to put their show their flag and fly the Union Jack. And yet we see these people on the streets of London again and again and again, week after week, for years now, and the police are all just like standing by, doing nothing, as chants me. Why do they police one so differently from the other? Is there a police justification for that?
I think it really comes from the top. So I've always said this. When I joined the Met, there's 40 senior officers. So in '89, half of those senior officers were, like myself, ex-military, and half were sort of university types. Over time, the whole senior management of the police in general has been taken over by university types who are very left-leaning. You'll probably feel more comfortable reading the Guardian than the
wearing
Telegraph.
rainbow striped shoelaces.
And you see, and what happens as well is, and the recruiting. When I went to Hendon, it was like a military establishment. The sergeant marched you around. Now the recruits go to university, so there's a whole mindset. So these are people who, you know, in their mindset, they feel comfortable with Extinction Rebellion, with the Palestinian organisation. They don't feel comfortable with people who they perceive are wicked and evil, who might fly a Union Jack, which to them is a really bad, because they're globalists and whatever else. And it is a state of mind, I would suggest. And like I say, you see it with the police of the Notting Hill Carnival, that, you know, so you go to Notting Hill, you can smoke drugs openly, you can swear at the police, you can threaten the police, you can twerk with a female officer to the point of a sexual assault. You can get away with that. And people say, and when people say there's not two-tier policing, my argument to that is, well, go to Millwall Football Club on Saturday and behave in exactly the same way as you did, and see how you're dealt with. And one of the big things, Julia, you can see is the best way to see how policing is being done is the hat. Look at the hats that they wear. If they're wearing sort of soft caps, or are they wearing riot helmets? And that the hat is your giveaway.
And there's a lot of talk, isn't there, that actually, you know, we say, you know, well, we don't want to stir up trouble. So there's an element where if you do have the riot police, there's just an aggro-y sort of feeling, and you're setting yourself up for confrontation.
You are.
But you can do that sort of soft policing. And again, this is where often say having female officers, you know, you just sort of calm things down. It's all just a bit more softly. And again, we've been told that they don't go in and they don't tackle the outrageous hate preaching going on these pro-Palestinian marches, which just are anti-Semitic marches in my view now. If you're still on those marches, you just hate Jews. I'm sorry, that's how I interpret it, because you're walking alongside people who absolutely openly are doing that, and I wouldn't walk alongside people who did that, even if I thought my cause was good. So when they say, but we can't go in, we can't tackle because we don't want to cause, you know, mayhem, and there are tens of thousands, and there's only, you know, a few hundred or a couple of thousand of police, we can't go in. But they don't seem to use that argument when it is someone, for instance, flying the Union flag, and they seem to have a very different attitude. We've seen kettling, we've seen going in very, very quickly. Now, I do not hold a candle for Stephen Yaxley-Leland, aka Tommy Robinson, and he does not for me either. I'm wary of ever speaking about him because you just start to it all off again. But nevertheless, you know, you're organising a march. It is perfectly legitimate for people to hold such a rally as he's planning to hold. It's the second one, very well attended last time, I say, by vast majority, completely law-abiding and peaceful people. Never any chance they were going to cause trouble. And yet there's talk about how that rally should be banned. We've had the government banning speakers coming from elected politicians, including Polish MPs, being banned from coming to speak here. What do you make of that?
Well, it just shows it's not just the police, it comes from the government. You know, I was looking at this Eva Vladinga-Brock. She was the one from Holland who President Trump intervened and said, look, you know, you're denying free speech in the United States.
She spoke of the last one, but her speech, the last one, I thought absolutely crossed the line.
But the unpleasant opinions are not hate speech, you know, they're not crimes, and we've got to get back into this country of saying, you know, like Voltaire, I disagree what you say, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it.
Then is that the argument for why the pro-Palestinian marches go ahead, or is, I mean, do we not accept there is a limit, and when people are rightly intimidated by people shouting for them to be killed en masse?
How many times, you know, you see en masse with the Palestinian marches, from the river to the sea, globalised intifada, you see this time and time again, and what it seems it's when you weigh it in the balance, one side is judged very differently from the other, and that's the real issue. If they crack down, how many imams have we allowed into the country who've said the most wicked things, about killing people, not unpleasant things, absolutely murderous things,
beating women,
and it's allowed to go on, and I think the public see this time and time again, and they're sickened. ordinary people are sick of being tarred as racist, far
Tell us
right.
what the rule is, and then apply the rule at all times. But again, you go back into the Tel Aviv Maccabi Tel Aviv football match against Aston Villa last November, and basically the reason why the match was they were going to be banned was simply because there was warnings from local so-called community leaders saying that there was going to be basically a mob out to basically attack and kill people who turned up as their fans, and the result of that was we should ban those people from coming, which is not, well, I mean, go arrest the people threatening the mob.
But this is all over the Western, it's not just here, this is the whole Western establishment who have decided they're going to have this multicultural society and they're going to crack down on anybody who disagrees with it. So, for example, I went to Cologne after all the sex attacks to advise the police there. For 3 days, the establishment in Germany had tried to hide that.
This was New Year's Eve, mass sexual assault.
They tried to hide that had ever happened until all these women came forward with videos. In Sweden, the same. People trying to hide the establishment, trying to hide it, and Douglas Murray describes this as the crime of noticing, and that people have noticed that something's gone on in their area.
Well, of course, we're all jumping on a far right bandwagon. Thank you so much. It's great to have you, Mike Neville, former Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Inspector. Just so you know, that the King has arrived in Golders Green. He's meeting local community members in Golders Green. After that, of course, a horrific double stabbing there in Golders Green just a couple of weeks ago. Interesting that, of course, he, rather differently from the Prime Minister when he went, swept in a car surrounded by his armed officers, swept in behind closed gates, and is still facing an awful lot of chance. King being certainly greeted very warmly by local people in the street, not cornered off, meeting locals and getting a very warm reception. I'm going to take a quick break right now. Up next, we are going to be talking to Gideon Falter, Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, and more from Henry Hill as well. This is Talk. Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, this is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:50 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest. He's Chief Executive at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter. A very good afternoon to you, Gideon.
Julia, good afternoon to you too.
Thank you for joining us. Look, there's a lot to talk about. I want to get straight to it. But first up, the King has arrived in Golders Green, where he's greeting local people and getting, by all accounts, a very warm reception, able to get out of his car on a public street, which is quite a different contrast with the Prime Minister after that horrific Golders Green double stabbing, believed to be an anti-Semitic attack. What do you make of his decision to visit Golders Green today?
I think a lot of people in the Jewish community in Golders Green will take this as a sign, a gesture from the King that he conveys the disgust of the vast majority of decent British people who are looking at what's going on in our country and seeing that our country has been radicalised, it's being disfigured beyond all recognition by what's going on at the moment, by this surge in Jew hatred and extremism. And the King obviously wants to go and show that he has he bears with him the solidarity of decent, tolerant, normal British people. The way that the community is responding to that is as you would expect. This is a Jewish community which is deeply integrated, where most people have been here now for generations. It's deeply patriotic. And the King will probably notice that from the lampposts in Golders Green, people have been flying Union Jacks.
There are plenty of Union flags there, yes.
Yeah. And, it's an area that you and I both know well, where people are going to be receiving this very, very welcome gesture of support at a time when people feel extremely isolated.
Now, it's very interesting that today also we've seen that Prince Harry has spoken out about anti-Semitism in Britain and claims he's learned from his own past mistakes. Of course, famously as a teenager, he wore a Nazi uniform to a party. Look, he was a kid. I think we can all move on from that. People make mistakes, but it's interesting that he's chosen to speak out now. What do you make of that?
It's kind of an astonishing article in a way. I mean, it's nice that the New Statesman decided to treat their readers to the wisdom of Prince Harry, and it obviously there's some kind of good intention there that he wants to show that he stands with Jewish people against anti-Semitism. But the essay itself is just it's kind of school essay grade. He
Did
talks
you expect
about
anything else?
Well, maybe the New Statesman did, I don't know, but they've got an essay there which starts going into anti-Semitism in the UK, saying it's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism and that we've all got to stand against it. Yeah. And then he goes off on this sort of strange side quest about Israel, in which he manages not to mention Hamas or the October 7th atrocity or anything else. And it's kind of like a non-intervention in many ways. He sort of says anti-Semitism is bad, so are lots of things.
It doesn't mention anything too specific that could upset anybody on the opposite side.
No, it almost feels like someone sort of said to him, look, Harry, bad things are happening in the UK, you should probably say something. And the thing that he said is not really a very helpful intervention, because what it essentially says is stuff that Israel's doing is going to cause Jews to get attacked. Well, that's not why Jews get attacked. Jews get attacked because people in the UK are radicalized and decide that they're going to come and attack Jews. Yeah. They were doing it straight after October 7th, before Israel had even responded in any manner, shape or form.
Exactly.
And that whilst there were still terrorists unleashing all sorts of depravity in Israel on October 7th, that was when the Palestine Solidarity Campaign first called up the Met Police.
Within hours, indeed. Well, yeah. Let me get on to that, because the police have refused to ban a particular pro-Palestine march. It's called the Nakba Day March, which is also running in parallel with a march organised by, well, it's described in the Telegraph as a far-right march, but it's organised by Tommy Robinson, a.k.a. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, for the week for Saturday. Some 4,000 police being deployed, having facial recognition recognition cameras, only for the Unite the Kingdom march. But I know an awful lot of people who absolutely couldn't remotely describe as far right, who went on the previous one and are going on and are planning to go this weekend. What do you make of the Metropolitan Police Chiefs basically saying that the legal threshold for banning the pro-Palestinian march has simply not been met?
You know, they banned the Al-Quds Day march that was being organised. It was something that the Ayatollah of Iran was in place in the 1970s, and it's banned right across the Middle East and was allowed in London for some reason. They decided, the Met, that was something that they could ban and would ban. I don't understand how they're able to ban that march and then tell us that this Nakba march, which as far as I can see is a march that is there entirely to mourn the fact that a Jewish state was created. You look at that and you think, how is it possible they can ban one and not the other? It seems very, very selective to me, and it is very selective. The Home Secretary can't step in and ban a march. The Home Secretary has to have permission asked by the police chief, Sir Mark Rowley. And if he makes the request, then the Home Secretary can grant that request. We'll all remember that in 2023, a couple of years ago now, 3 years ago, the then Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, pretty much begged Sir Mark Rowley to ask her permission to ban one of the hate marches on Armistice Day. Yeah. He refused to do so, saying the legal threshold wasn't met. Yeah. He has used his powers since then, not just on the Al-Quds Day march. He also banned a march by UKIP in Tower Hamlets. Yeah. It just seems to be double standards all of the way. These marches can be banned and should be banned. And how much more does it take for Sir Mark Rowley to decide that we actually do need to start banning marches?
Yeah, and yet they have. And again, I'm a free speech campaigner. However, you know, they have I think on more than 2/3 of the occasions of these marches taking place, had to take stern police action, you know, because of, you know, some of the outrageous anti-Semitism and hate being shouted. You think, you know, that alone be enough to ban a Unite the Kingdom march on the other side. So it is quite extraordinary. Look, time, I'm afraid, is against us. We've got Eurovision coming up at the weekend, and I know, again, you've got the usual nonsense. We've got hard-left Labour MP Zara Sultana basically calling for a Eurovision boycott because Israel has made it to the finals. I'm going to wish Israel the very best of luck, along with the United Kingdom applicant, and indeed my mate Tonya Buxton's daughter, Antigone, who's singing for Cyprus. So all three. Let's have you all in the 1, 2 and 3, whatever order you choose. But Gideon Falter, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just on the marches, Henry Hill, political editor of The Critic. Do you think that Met should cancel one, other, none?
I think when he says the legal threshold, what makes me worried about that is it means there's a possibility that someone could actually sue. So I think that actually what this means is Suella Braverman begging Sir Mark Rowley, change the law. If he's saying the legal threshold is too high, you were Home Secretary, change the law.
Yeah, exactly. How long it takes to do that. But it does just seem to me the rules are very different in terms of the policing, the attitude, and just what is allowed to take place. And I think the default should be you should be allowed to have marches if you so choose and have protests. But again, when enough people at any given event repeatedly do flout the law, you as an organiser should be responsible for that, and they should be